get started. Our quorum will appear. We aren't making any votes until a little later probably, so we'll be okay. I think we're up to 3. Alderman Dillon is here. Alderman. Y'all, while we're waiting for our quorum, I want to give a shout out to our state senator. We are just so honored to have Mr. Kelvin Butler here. He came a long way to be here this morning. And we're also very honored to have our state representative, Sam Mims. I don't know what we do without Sam. Grateful. And then we're just so grateful to have all of you here. We're glad to see Diane DuPont, our new director of DNA, Downtown Natchez Alliance. So glad. And y'all, Lynn Jenkins, I'm starting to get used to this, but here we've got both Lynn and Debbie side by side. Look at this. I want to just tell you, we're so blessed. And also Natchez Inc. Did so much. And so where are you? Chandler? Yes, sir. And y'all, I want to acknowledge also our sheriff. We're so grateful for Travis Patton and what he does. And they can clap for you, sheriff. And our fire chief just came in, Chief Arrington. We're grateful for him. And then, of course, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Nelson and our airport commissioners in a minute, but we wouldn't be having this meeting without them. We're so grateful for what they've done. I'm just still looking around. We're waiting for one more alderman, but I think we're about to. Man, the supervisors are out doing this today. We're going to go ahead. We're going to go ahead and get started, Mr. President, I think, and then they will get here. Someone text a couple of them, make sure they're on the way. Yeah, we were there a little too late last night. Jan Griffith, appreciate you. The Natchez Democrat, a great partner in helping get the word out about today's meeting.
All right.
Give them a hand. All right, you want to call your story?
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to call the Adams County Board of Supervisors meeting to order.
And I will also call the mayor and board of aldermen for the city of Natchez to order. And at this time, we would like to invite everyone to stand for our invocation. Devin Heath, the executive director of Visit Natchez, will provide our invocation, and then we will follow it with our pledge.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us. We thank you for the many blessings that you've bestowed on our city, on our county, and on our state. We ask that you continue to guide us to do your will, to guide us to provide for our community, and to fellowship with each other as we work together towards bringing Natchez and Adams County to a more prosperous place. We ask that you continue to provide your guidance to our leaders, to our elected officials, and to our community members so that we all do your will. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Let us join together in our pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Call roll. Why don't you call roll first?
Okay. District 2 Supervisor Kevin Wilson.
Here.
District 3 Supervisor Angela Hutchins.
Here.
District 4 Supervisor Ricky Gray here. District 5 Supervisor Warren Gaines. Board Attorney Scott Slover.
Present.
Deputy Clerk Paige Dean. Chancery Clerk Brandy Lewis. And County Administrator Angie King.
All right. And Madam Clerk, I'll ask you to administer the roll call.
Alderman Hall. Here. Alderman Alderman Frazier.
Here.
Alderwoman Smith. Here. Alderwoman Irving. Here. Alderman Davis. He's actually trying to call my phone. And Alderman Dillard.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We're going to need to make a room for Alderwoman Irving to come up front. Perhaps she could sit here next to Dustin. What? No, I think as long as we just need our Alderwoman to be closer up front to us. We're so glad to have everyone here. At this time, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Richard Nelson, who has done so much to make today possible, and our airport commissioners. If we could, President Middleton, since the airport commissioners serve under the jurisdiction of the county, if you would acknowledge them or have them introduce themselves.
Yeah, if y'all would, please stand up. I think we saw three here besides the director.
All right. We thank y'all. Please introduce yourselves to us.
Richard Nelson, Airport Director. I'm John McCullough, Kane Keller, Airport Commissioner.
All right. We thank y'all. I want to just say thank you to the county. It's been wonderful working together on this now for so long. Supervisor Hutchins, I still want to call you President Hutchins because you were the board president when we made that trip to Greenville to get a conversation started. By the way, Supervisor Hutchins, look right there behind you and you'll see the Honorable Buzz Craft, Mayor of Vidalia. Give the mayor we're so grateful for our partner there across the river. Supervisor Hutchins, we've come a long way since that day. The leadership of the county has been amazing. President Middleton, before we even get to the report, would you like to share a little bit of what the county's been doing at the airport? Because y'all have really taken the lead here.
Yeah, so partnered with the city, their partnership in this has been invaluable, along with everything we partnered with in the recent past and coming future. Rebuilding that relationship and trying to move Natchez and Adams County forward has been great. The grants that Richard has been able to acquire for the airport, Richard, would you give us the high points on those as far as the runway project?
He may have to come to the microphone to be listened to online. I'm sorry, Richard.
So the present grants that we have right now is we're doing the runway rehab for the pavement on the runway at the moment. I actually have a construction meeting in the morning to go ahead and start the LED lights for the main runway. I also received a grant for AAA AFFF ARF foam. So what that does is test our ARF truck to make sure if something ever goes wrong, our fire truck's in good handling condition. So I have that grant as well. And I just received $59,000 for a CARES grant too. So the airport is definitely moving forward and we'll continue to do everything that we need.
Wow.
Richard reported to us at our board meeting on Monday that we only have one open hangar available at the airport at this time,
Yes.
which is a good problem to have. For those of you who don't know, what we have in Richard Nelson as an airport director is invaluable. What he brings to the table, his experience, his knowledge, and what he's been able to bring to that airport and what he's going to bring to it in the future. So, Richard, thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Supervisor Warren Gaines has stepped in.
Supervisor Gaines, good morning. Well, I think at this point we need to talk about why we're here today. Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's my understanding that Southern Airways will be participating virtually. Are we set up to do that? Great. I want to introduce Jeremiah Gerald. Jeremiah has become an invaluable leader in this team. From the moment he was brought in to be the airport consultant last year and all of the work he's done. And so we want to introduce you and turn it over to you, Mr. Gerald.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It has been a journey, right? It hasn't been, we've been working, what, about a year, a little less than a year on the project. So, and of course, as you know, if you watch the news, it's, you know, economies and airline strategies and business models are shifting. It seems like weekly these days. So it's important that we stay on top of it. So what I wanted to do first, number one is, I'm sure Mark Sestari, who's the Chief Commercial Officer for Southern Airways, unfortunately couldn't be here in person. He was planning to be here, but as we all know, it's not easy to get to Natchez, Mississippi. It is a very difficult journey, especially coming from Morgantown, West Virginia. So there was a flight cancellation between there and Baton Rouge, and he couldn't make it in, unfortunately, last night. But he is on, and I'll kick it off. We'll let him say hello briefly, and then I'll kick it off with just some, I want to start with some data slides, let you guys know what's going on in the industry, but also what's happening here locally. And then I'll hand it over to Mark, and he'll give you a presentation on who Southern Airways is, what is their strategy, and why are they interested in operating from Natchez, Mississippi. So with that.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very sorry I couldn't be there. It wasn't our airline that was the problem, but nonetheless, I was really looking forward to meeting all of you, and hopefully I can get down there very, very soon.
Excellent. All right, so we'll put him in the background for now, and we'll bring him back in a second. But I won't keep you guys long, but I think it's important that you get an idea on what are the opportunities and certainly what are the challenges in the industry today. So to get an air service win in a small community is few and far between. So to have partners at the table like Southern is a huge step in the right direction. So let me give you a little bit of, I met a lot of you. I'm sure there's several in the room that I haven't met before. So I'll give you a little bit of background around me. I'm from the South. I graduated from Louisiana Tech University in aviation as a pilot with a minor in aviation management. Went to work for 9 years down in Gulfport, Biloxi, being a business development, air service development person. So basically the marriage counselor between the casinos and the airlines for several years. And then I was recruited into a consultant role. This company that I work for now is a part of a global family of aviation companies. We are owned by, well, let me go opposite direction here. We are owned by Informa. I fall underneath Aviation Week Network, which is based in New York. We have offices all over the world, but that's our primary office in the U.S. And me personally, am based in Diamond Head, Mississippi. I'm sure I usually say near New Orleans when I'm meeting with groups, but since you guys are from Mississippi, I'm sure you know where Diamond Head is located. So let me give you a quick rundown of the airline industry. Being a consultant in the business, especially when you're working with airlines, you need to understand what they're trying to accomplish, what kind of airplanes they fly, what markets they operate in and out of. But also there's a lot of complex issues that are happening globally that impact air service and the capability for growing, retaining air service options from airport markets. So as we all know, fuel is a big issue, right? Energy cost. That's the volatility of energy costs. Even though they are subsiding, the overall cost is coming down some. The volatility still causes a lot of issue in planning as it relates to internal network planning teams within airlines. Regulatory issues, things like that. Growth with the real growth that's happening in the U.S. is in the ultra low cost carrier space. So you've heard about Frontier Airlines, Spirit Airlines, JetBlue, that potential merger that's going to happen. That's important to understand what is the repercussion of that as long as the DOJ approves it. Staffing shortages is a big one we'll talk about here in a minute. So this is a kind of a busy chart here, but it really just breaks down the issues and the external impacts that have taken place since deregulation of the airline industry. You can see we had that recession in the 80s. We had Gulf War. We had 9/11, and you can see the recovery process. We had another recession. And then what we're in now, though, this pandemic caused issue is one of the longest periods of time where we've been at the bottom as it relates to overall air travel demand. One thing that's important to note, though, is we always rebound. Anytime we have these external shocks, eventually we rebound and we continue to grow with GDP. So we expect to come out of this fairly quickly. But you can see what the biggest and longest shock to hit aviation. So previous shocks mentioned 5 to 20% of revenue passenger kilometers. But you can see how deep this impact is to the industry. And it's really going to fundamentally change how the industry operates going forward. Now, we have recovered from a domestic travel perspective. You can see that top line, the red, and what we were expecting to see going forward. But domestic travel is certainly back. And that actually came back last year. We had a lot of leisure traffic that started getting back in the air. This year, we have pent up demand. We've got a lot of money that's been set aside for trips that have been delayed. So we're seeing people pay a little bit more to get to where they want to go. We're also seeing the return of corporate travel, which is extremely important for Natchez. That's going to be vital to the industry, and it has fundamentally changed. There's a segment of the corporate traffic that is going, instead of doing a day trip to go do face-to-face business, they're going to elect to do a web meeting. International corporate travel is also another segment that we're watching closely and important to the Natchez region, but it hasn't fully recovered either. I'll skip through some of this, but you can see domestic air travel is down about 0.6%, while we still have international air travel down about 8% as of the latest data sets. We do expect a full recovery this year, though, as long as we don't have anything major happening in the industry. Airbus has recently released this expectation of when the market or the aviation market will return to its normal level. So you're looking at about the end of 22. And then we'll start to see growth over 23. Again, so where's the growth? So network airlines, U.S. domestic departures by airline type. So if you look at this June, July 22 versus 19, network airlines being American, Delta, United, those big mature global carriers are retracting. They're actually pulling back service. They're pulling down service. A lot of the regional air service is what's actually being impacted. As I mentioned before, these low-cost carrier hybrid models, or the ultra low-cost carriers, is where the real growth is happening within the industry. This is an example of regional flights that American operated out of Charlotte, fourth quarter of 21, versus what is scheduled to operate in fourth quarter of 22. So these are all the markets that they've canceled. They've pulled out of those markets, or they've pulled out of at least Charlotte service out of those markets. Some of those have Dallas, some of those have some other options with American, but for the most part, that's a pretty large amount of cuts within the U.S. network system. So what's happening? So fares are up. We know inflation, that's impacting overall fares across the board. Operating costs are up. Remember, I mentioned fuel, energy. That's a big part of it. That's a huge element to the overall operating cost of an airline. And then, of course, as we experienced with Mark last night, schedule reliability has been an issue over the summer months, simply because we don't have enough airplanes and we don't have enough staff to fly them or work them on the ground. So it's causing a lot of issues this summer. And it's similar to any other industry, to where you turn it off, the demand comes back pretty quickly, but we don't have the staff to accommodate that demand in the short term. And it takes a minute to train pilots. It's not like you can go out and just pull somebody off the street and put them in an airplane and they can fly tomorrow. This is going to be an ongoing issue. And this is going to lead into the discussion that we're having about Southern, because Southern is a unique airline, and we'll talk about some of the insulation that they have with this staffing issue that we're seeing across the industry. Again, just an example of, you can see the low-cost operators. This is the capacity growth between second quarter 22 versus 19. You can see that's where the growth is taking place. Those low-cost operators have these big aircraft orders. They're getting new aircraft in the door at the tune of 1 to 2 a month, and that's what's going to be driving growth into the next 5 years at least. United, Delta, American, more of a mature airline. So any kind of growth you see with them is going to be minimal, because they already serve a large majority of the markets across the world. Load factors, that's the other thing. So we have fewer capacity. We're filling those airplanes. That load factor is going up. So you can see as of 2022, we're exceeding the load factor on airplanes. We're at 89.3% is the average. So 89.3% of that aircraft is filled on average across across the U.S. Capacity. So we're doing well there. And then there's a break-even load factor. How, we look at costs, we look at what the revenue is, and then we figure out on average, what is the U.S. carrier, what U.S. carriers have to carry on those airplanes just to break even. So you can see first quarter 22, 93%. Second quarter, it goes down to 85. Third quarter, 83. So we're starting to normalize a bit to where we can actually make profits within the industry. It's taken a couple of years. Mentioned before, fuel is going to be an ongoing issue. I work with an airport in Columbus, Georgia. We introduced American Airline service to Charlotte and to Dallas in August of 2021 under a program, a DOT program similar to what we're going to talk about with Natchez. In about 7 months, the airline burned through about $2 million. A lot of that has to do with the cost of fuel increasing. We saw a new fees monthly of a tune of about $50,000 to $60,000 just attributed to fuel. And it's only on a short flight between Columbus, Georgia and Charlotte with a small regional aircraft. So energy is a big issue. It's a big deal, and it's impacting the industry. And the volatility, like I said, is going to impact the industry going forward. There's no doubt about it. Even if it does subside a bit, it's still going to have an impact on how airlines plan. And it's just an example of what happens with cost. So you can see as that fuel number continues to rise, we get into the billions of dollars. It's billions of dollars in new cost. From $2.01 up to 301, that's $19 billion of new costs within the industry. So that's how important the issue of fuel is and energy for this industry. So we keep a close watch on it. But I mentioned before, it's about pilot shortages too. This is the graph showing where we were during the pandemic as it relates to demand or a need for pilots. But you can see, as I mentioned before, we need them now. We need all those pilots back and then some. We're already having a shortage leading up to the pandemic. So you can see the supply. We're going to have about 60,000. We're going to be down about 60,000 pilots by the time we get to 2029, unless we interact and we change things as it relates to the pipeline to get pilots into those seats. It's not just in the U.S. either. Of course, it's big in the U.S., but it's a global issue. The pilot issue is a global issue. It's not just unique to the U.S. And then the last piece, just giving you some more overview industry update, is this is from Regional Airline Association. They specialize, in the 50-seat, 70-seat regional jet space. And as you can see, we don't have enough pilots to fly all the airplanes, so the 50-seaters are at the bottom of that pile. And markets that rely on 50-seaters are the ones that are going to lose service. So those 50-seaters are getting pushed out of the market. They're getting pushed out. They're not economical with high fuel. And we don't have enough pilots to fly them. So we need pilots to fly the mainline aircraft. So that's just the way it works. So a lot of the smaller communities are going to lose service altogether if they had service with 50-seat regional jets, or they're going to lose frequency. They'll get some larger RJs, but the number of flights per day will fall off. We see that at places like Gulfport, Jackson. No one's immune to it. This is how much air service lost in the small communities that we've seen since first quarter 19 versus first quarter 2022. So eight of these airports lost service altogether. But you can see it's a huge impact on these regional markets, the level of air service that's come down, that's fallen off since 2019. And again, it's a demand. There's certainly demand is leading some of this, but staffing and the availability of aircraft is also a big piece to this. Skip through some of this. So airline incentives. That's why, when I just showed you the graph before and I mentioned, hey, fuel went up a little bit and then the cost of the airline went up about, $50,000, $60,000 a month just for fuel. It's important that incentives are in play with communities, right? So communities and having you guys in the room and just to kind of update you on some of the things that we've done to lead to where we are right now as it relates to incentives. So we have an active federal grant application in right now, which we should be hearing the results of that within the next month, I believe. It's a DOT program. It's called the Small Community Air Service Development Program. And it basically allows airports in the U.S. that are small hub and down, nothing larger than a small hub airport, can apply, but it allows those airports to ask for risk mitigation funding or marketing dollars to support new air service. Airports can't use their own funds to cover shortfalls for an airline that comes in and tries to make a profit, right? So in the beginning, it's usually, that's the most challenging time with a new airline, you know, trying to get them up and running, get that awareness out there. So there's going to be some loss in the beginning. And airlines just don't have the appetite to take those losses. And that's why risk mitigation funds are vital. If you're going to get air service in a small community, we have to have these risk mitigation funds to cover some of the risk, not all of the risk, but some of the risk of that carrier coming into the market. And I mentioned before, so subsidies and joint ventures is the big one, right? That's what airlines are looking for. They're looking for a risk mitigation that's going to cover their costs, that's going to guarantee they're going to make a certain amount of revenue on a quarterly basis. If they don't make that, then this money will make them whole, will come in and make them whole. So that's some of the, and then also I'll close with this. And this is where we kind of get into the uniqueness of Southern Airways, right? And why it makes sense for Southern to be the target carrier that we're meeting with, the partner that we want to bring to Natchez. Right now, what's happening in the U.S., I just showed you all those regional markets that lost air service because of staffing, because of the availability of those aircraft. Well, we have new innovative approaches to connecting those communities with the global air transportation system. Here's one example. A company called Landline is basically operating a bus to a hub, right? From a small community to a hub within about an hour. If the airport's within about an hour and a half of the hub, and you're booking an American or a Sun Country ticket, you're booking an actual ticket, and you're getting on a bus as opposed to a regional jet, and it brings you to the concourse. It takes your bag, puts it on an airplane. You get off in the concourse just like you would with an airplane, but you're doing it by bus. And that solves the issue of needing pilot, number one. That also solves the issue of cost of flying an aircraft with all that crew on a short stage to a hub. So this is one of the options. And it's also carbon. The carbon footprint is much lower, and that's a big thing that the industry is certainly trying to tackle over the next 10, 15 years. There's some lofty goals there. So the carbon footprint for a bus versus an aircraft is certainly much, much lower in this scenario. So it leads us to Southern, and I don't want to steal any of Mark's thunder. He's going to give you a good rundown on who Southern is and how they've evolved. I don't know if you guys recall, but Southern used to fly in the Natchez market many years ago, but they're a very different carrier than they were when they flew back here before. One of the big value propositions for Southern in maintaining staffing and pilots is the fact that they're not a Part 121 operator, they're a commuter carrier. So the requirements of the pilots to operate those aircraft, they're not competing with the pool of pilots that are going to the legacies or to the network carriers, because they're a commuter airline. So these guys are coming in, they don't have to have that 1,500 hours, which is causing the pilot shortage. A big part of the pilot shortage issue is you have to have a minimum of 1,500 hours to get into the commercial flying side of the business, like with an American or a SkyWest. These guys are commuters, so those requirements aren't there. They don't have the pilot as big of a pilot issue, but they are a pipeline to push those pilots into the network carriers once they get that hourly experience. So this is one of the key things about Southern and what's happening in the U.S. specifically, is this insulation from the impacts of staffing as it relates to pilots. So that's one great thing that we have going, and Mark's going to tell you a long list of other things. And the other thing that I would point to is, where are they located? Where do they have pilots, and where do they have aircraft? I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but they're flying all around Natchez. So they already have a presence here. We don't have to take a resource out from the Northeast or from California or wherever it may be and start a new operation. They have an operation established here already, and it's growing. So we would become a spoke within that, that southeast region, basically. I mentioned this before. This is the hot thing that's going now. It's the consolidation of airlines. It happened during the last energy crisis. I don't know if you recall. We used to have Northwest Airlines. Now it's a part of Delta. We used to have U.S. Airways. Now it's a part of American Airlines. So a lot of the mergers and acquisitions actually took place when we had these big shocks to the industry. This is going to be, when this happens, which it'll likely be Frontier and Spirit that come together. This is going to be the new Southwest airline. Southwest, as we know, is no longer a low-cost carrier anymore. They're more of a mature airline. Their labor costs are really high, so you can't be a low-cost carrier if your cost to operate the business are high. So this will be the new Southwest. Once this happens, we'll have the 5th largest airline in the U.S. It'll actually be a formidable competitor to some of the big boys like Delta, American, United, and Southwest. And who knows? It could be a possibility to get those guys into Natchez at some point. But I wanted to leave you with this too. So being creative around this energy crisis is important too, because a lot of regional airports compete with airports that surround them, right? So in order to keep people to flying local, and I don't think it's here in Natchez probably not as big of a challenge because it's a pretty long drive to airports that you could get access to. But this is a good example of Lake Charles. We got a lot of people who drive over to Houston to fly out, and we're just trying to educate them on, hey, it's more expensive to drive than you think now. So calculate that into your overall travel plans. And yeah, as you all know from Natchez, driving to New Orleans to fly out, driving over to Jackson, driving down to Baton Rouge to fly out, it's not a cheap proposition, right? I mean, it's expensive to travel on the roadways these days. So things like this are also playing in the favor of keeping people here, lowering the risk for an airline to operate from Natchez, knowing that those people will get a value by using the nonstop service that will be available here in the near future. I'm going to run through this really quickly, but this is important. This is important to Southern too. This is the kind of information that we share with airlines, Southern specifically, to show them that we have a market here. There's people who actually fly that live in this region. So when we look at our catchment area, so this is the 60-mile radius around Natchez. So we want to know, in this case, have we recovered? Are people getting back in the air? Are they flying like they did prior to the pandemic? And the good news is they are, and they're actually doing it more. So if you look back in 2019, the numbers on top are PDU. That stands for how many people are traveling per day each way, right? It's just a simple way to measure demand, right, on a daily basis. So we have about 310 people in fourth quarter of 2019 daily per day that are flying via air, right, from the 60-mile radius surrounding Natchez. So it's a pretty significant amount of travel. But if you fast forward through the pandemic, here in 21 and here in the first quarter of 22, we're exceeding the amount of air travel than we did prior to the pandemic. So that's a good sign for this region. And I know I was talking to Richard about all the new business permits and all the new developments that are taking place in this region. And that ties in with what's happening on the ground within Natchez. It's important that we have air service to move customers in and out of this market if we want to keep that momentum going, right? We need to get them here directly. It's a very difficult journey to get tourists here. It's a very difficult journey to get corporate travel, right, in and out of this market. It's going to help the corporations. It'll help spark additional investment within this region if we've got easy access to air service. And I'll leave with this and I'll hand it over to Mark, but this is how detailed and how much we know about the market. We can hone in down to the zip code and we know how much travel is actually taking place, what airport they're using to fly out, where their final destination is within this 60-mile radius. So where Natchez sits within that zip code, 68, 69 people per day. So it's really just a handful of zip codes that surround this market that generate the majority of traffic. It's where people live, it's where the disposable income is. So certainly not as difficult as going into a very busy market and trying to get a marketing message out to people. Here we can certainly target it and make sure the awareness is there. Where are most people going? They're flying out of New Orleans. They're driving down to New Orleans. So about 295 of the 480 are driving down to New Orleans to fly. Right behind that, Jackson, and then Baton Rouge, as we all would expect. Now, when they go to New Orleans, can you guess what airline most of them are getting on when they fly out of New Orleans? Southwest. Southwest is the largest carrier in New Orleans. But again, so when they fly to New Orleans, most of them are going to leisure destinations like Orlando. We do have Fort Lauderdale, Vegas, and that ties in well with what Southwest is doing out of New Orleans. They have nonstop flights to those markets, and they're and the pricing is not on the American Delta end, but it's certainly not on the cheap end. It's not like flying Frontier for $39. You're still paying a reasonable fare. But that, most people, when they go to New Orleans, they're probably bringing families and they're going on vacation because they're trying to get a lower fare to fly out of that particular market. Now, when they go to Jackson, you can see it shifts to more business. So you've got 3.5 of the people per day are going to Atlanta. They're getting off the airplane in Atlanta. And then you've got people going to places like Washington, D.C. So definitely when they get over to Jackson, they're going a little bit more business-centric markets. Same thing. We have people, it's crazy. We have people that are driving to Houston from this market to fly as well. We believe it has something to do with the energy sector, the developments that are happening with the energy sector. People go to Houston, may do business around Houston, but then they get on an airplane and go to their final destination as well. So this is one of the targets for us going forward to try to get people into Houston. Top markets for the 60-mile radius with again, that passenger per day each way with it is about 490 as of calendar year 2019. LAX, obviously this is during 2019. Remember how a lot of film, a lot of things happening during that period of time. A lot of people coming in from LA. So you can see it in the data. You can see it in the numbers. We know that there's demand. We know where they're going. We tie that in what Southern is going to be doing within their network, and the likelihood of carrying that traffic is very high. So I'll close with, we talked about the SCASD program. We've asked for this amount, just for if you guys haven't seen this before. This is what we've asked the federal government for. So $750,000 for a minimum revenue guarantee. With a $200,000, it's required that we have a public-private match of $200,000. So a total program, including marketing expenses, of about $1,075,000. Now, we're not guaranteed to get that money, but we do have a strong application, and it's a possibility that we'll get access to that federal money, which will be very important. And then the last thing, we've been working with the state. I know Richard's had many discussions. I know the mayor's had discussions. The state of Mississippi has an air service program that was built after the BP oil spill. It was put together after the BP oil spill, and it was primarily put together for Gulfport, Biloxi, right? Because that's where the casinos are. That region was impacted more than the rest of the state. But we're at a point now, the oil spill was many, many years ago. So we're at a point now to where we want to take advantage of it in other airport markets in the state, right? So we've been working with the state to try to maybe get a few little things amended in the language of that agreement, which hasn't been changed since 2016, I believe, to make it easier for us to get access to that funding. It's about $2.5 million, and there's some stipulations in there. So really, Natchez, Tupelo, or not Tupelo, Natchez, Tupelo with gaming, right? Tunica, I don't know why I keep saying Tupelo. Tunica, Natchez, and Gulfport are the only 3 airports in the state that can really access it, based on the way that it's created, because the airline has to have a partnership with a gaming entity. So fortunately, we have one here. We meet the criteria. We just need to get a few things changed in the language to make sure it applies to carriers like Southern. But that's more of a longer term thing that we're working on. We can't change, obviously, language in a state program overnight. But just wanted you guys to be aware that is a program that's lucrative, and we're working really hard to get access to that here in Natchez, Mississippi. So with that, I will hand it over to our good friend, Mark Sestari, Chief Commercial Officer for Southern Airways. I've worked with Mark on many different projects over the years. I've seen the evolution of Southern Airways, from being just that little small point-to-point operator, mainly just moving, very niche traffic to, from one business market to the next. Into what they are today and what they're going to become as we move forward into the future. They're making a lot of key acquisitions. Mark's been a part of a lot of these big agreements that they have with American, United, and Alaska. So I'll hand it over to him, and I'll let him give you all the details. It's all yours, Mark.
All right, thank you. Can you get the deck up there for me to see, or should I just go? I have a copy here. Can you put it up?
He's got it up. It's on the screen here.
All right, good. Well, I've been doing this for 25 years through 9/11, the Gulf War, the Great Recession, And I have to say, everything I've learned in 25 years is pretty useless at this point, because the pace of change in our industry is so rapid that the past is really not a good indicator of the future, whether it's the customer profile, whether it's the condition of the industry. Now we have a totally new work from home dynamic. And having someone like Jeremiah as a resource is essential to my ability to do my job. And his presentation really hit all the key factors that go into the mix. My job as Chief Commercial Officer of this company, which I've been doing for 9 years, I'm one of 6 C-level execs and owners of the company. My job is to wade through the very complex swamp that we're all in right now and pick winners. Pick winners both for us and, as importantly, for our communities. One of the reasons we have been successful is that we have spent time up front figuring out who are the best partners for us, not just for the short term, but for the long term. And today there are so many elements that go into that. Having a relationship with Jeremiah and being able to look at all the nuances of what's happening there, you know, from big picture development to more granular issues like what are your key markets, what are the drivers, who are the anchor tenants that are going to be on our plane, is what's going to make this successful. I have dealt with over 100 markets, and we have opened up about 30 of them since we started this adventure in 2013. And I'm hopeful that Natchez will be our next winner. Next slide, please. So here is a visual overview of our company. Founded in 2013 down in Memphis, right up the road by Stan Little. Stan started flying from Memphis down to Destin, and over the course of the past 9.5 years, some of the major benchmarks, Southern acquired my company, Sun Air Express. We were Fort Lauderdale-based commuter in 2016. We developed a partnership with Mesa and SkyWest for a pilot pipeline program, which has turned out to be one of the most important and smart moves that we made. We now have 300 pilots, and unlike the big airlines, despite with the chaos in the industry, we are, for the past 18 months, we have completed 99.3% of our flights, 99.3% controllable completion, and that number is better than Delta and American Airlines. And that is partially because, as Jeremiah said, we fly primarily commuter type aircraft, and the big airlines cannot raid our troops. We do like our pilots to move up, and we expect them to move out, but we want them to spend a couple of years building their hours and flying with Southern Airways. Some of the other benchmarks, one of the things that we have tried to do is have diversified revenue. A lot of small airlines fly only in the Essential Air Service program, which is a subsidized government program to provide service to small communities that would have otherwise fallen off the map. We've decided that a better course for us is a hybrid plan where about half of our communities are Essential Air Service, like Harrison and Hot Springs and El Dorado in Arkansas. But then the other half are high-end destinations, tourist destinations like Nantucket or Maui or places like that, where the yields are much better. So the Essential Air Service program allows us to operate in big hubs, but the margins are small. Then we do more of this specialized flying in places like islands, Hawaii and Nantucket, where folks are willing to pay a couple $100 for a 20-minute flight. So in 2018, we opened up a base in Nantucket. We now fly to 5 cities in New England. We also, in 2018, embarked on our program to get interline relationships, and we got our first interline in 2018, and I'll touch on that more down the road. 2019, we got an interline with Alaska Airlines. 2020, we purchased a Hawaiian airline, Makani Kai. And we also, in 2020, entered into a partnership with Tailwind. Tailwind is a commuter that flies identical Cessna Caravan aircraft, but they fly float planes from Boston Harbor to New York's East River. So we are their distribution channel. We also started in 2020 to test the idea of hybrid electric aircraft. And I'll touch on the details of that in a minute. In 2021, we expanded to the Rockies, opening a hub in Denver, and we achieved a crowning jewel interline agreement with United Airlines, opened up a hub at Washington Dulles Airport and also at Los Angeles. In 2022, despite the pandemic and the malaise in the industry, we acquired St. Louis-based Air Choice One, and with that got 7 new airplanes, 25 pilots, and a maintenance base. And starting in 2 weeks, we will have a new footprint in the Marianas Islands, and we're very, very excited about that. We will be the flagship airline of that country. Very, very big and exciting project for us. Next slide, please. So 49 destinations in the Mid-Atlantic, New England, New York, in the Gulf, West Coast, and the Rockies, Hawaii. This slide is actually outdated. In 2 weeks, we now have 700 employees, not 650, 300 pilots, not 270. We are, despite everything that's going on, the fastest growing and the largest commuter airline in the country. But we do love our small towns. One of our small towns is DuBois, Pennsylvania, and just up the road there is Groundhog Day, Punxsutawney Phil, and I did have the privilege of going there a couple of years ago. It's quite fun. So my job brings me all over the country, destinations large and small, and I can't wait to get down there and get a look at your community. It looks beautiful and interesting, and hopefully be able to do that in the next couple weeks. Next slide. So as Jeremiah said, the great thing about this opportunity for us is that our largest mainland footprint, we have maintenance space, our largest maintenance space right up the road in Memphis, which from an operating perspective is so important in terms of reliability, because things happen in the airline business, planes break, pilots call out sick, pilots get COVID, and there is nothing better than having a fix 20 minutes away by air or half an hour away by air. So the fact that we already have a presence and fly right over you guys definitely weighs in your favor, because one of the reasons Southern has been so successful is that we build scale in the market areas that we're in. We don't like to have isolated routes. Like right now in the Rockies, we just have Denver to Chadron. We are looking to build out that footprint with 4 new routes over the next couple of years, because we like to have scale. Scale means spare parts, spare planes, spare pilots, and good reliability. And when you're the only airline in town, it's not an important thing. It is the most important thing to fly reliably, especially if you're building the business on connecting traffic. People have connections. You've got to fly, and you've got to fly on time. Speaking of connections, next slide. So right now we have 3 interline agreements, Alaska, United, and American, and we are connecting about 55% of our traffic to the majors. And the great thing about our interline partnerships is that they're bilateral. In other words, you can go on united.com and buy a ticket on Southern Airways, or you can go on iflysouthern.com and buy a ticket on American or United. I don't know if any of you have tried to contact one of the big airlines by phone lately when they're having all these massive 3,000 flight cancellations in a weekend, but it's not unusual if you call them for them to say, we'll call you back in 6 hours. The great thing about our interline partnerships is if you have a disrupted flight on Alaska or a disrupted flight on United or American, you can call our 24-hour customer care team. We have 40 people in 6 time zones, and they can rebook not just your Southern Airways ticket, but also your United, American, or Alaska ticket. And like my flight was disrupted yesterday. I was on United. Our call center called them, and we were not able to get me there, but at least I could talk to someone, because there's nothing more frustrating when you're in the middle of one of these disrupted experiences where you can't speak to anyone on the phone and get it fixed. So our call center is terrific. We operate in a lot of weather impacted markets. The weather in Bradford, PA in the winter can be pretty rough, but when we do need to reaccommodate people, our folks do an outstanding job. And I think it's one of the reasons we have become the leading commuter in the country, because our customer care really is as good as any major airline, probably better.
And Mark, this is
Yes.
this is the huge value proposition for Southern. Historically, like I mentioned before, when Southern flew to the market, this didn't exist. But this is really what brings Southern into the mix to capture more traffic and to lower the risk of operating from a market like Natchez. Because I don't know, let me explain briefly. I don't know how much you guys know about interline. So basically, it's Southern is selling an American ticket from Natchez, right? So if I went to Southern's website, or if I went to American's website, I would type in Natchez. My final destination, is it New York? Is it Washington, D.C.? You fly Southern on that first leg, right, to get to Memphis, to get to New Orleans, eventually, hopefully, to get to Dallas. But you're getting the credit with American, right? So it's an American ticket all the way through. The baggage connects. So it's basically, and that's really what happens in normal air service markets to begin with. So, the ones that have regional airlines, the 50-seaters that I mentioned before, the 70-seaters, those are not operated by American, Delta, or United. Those are operated by a separate company, SkyWest, PSA, that flies on behalf of American, Delta, or United. So me getting on that airplane wouldn't know any difference. It looks like an American airplane. I'm getting the benefits of American. I'm getting access to their network from my home airport. But in all reality, those operators are not owned by American Airlines. They're a separate company that is contracting to fly with American. This scenario is very similar as it relates to the value proposition, the connectivity. Before, Southern flew you to Memphis, that's where you either ended your trip or you had to buy a separate airline ticket, come out of security, recheck your bag, get on another airline, and fly out. Not the ideal scenario. The way this works now is you would fly to a Dallas or you would fly to a Memphis, and you would seamlessly connect into the American flight that gets you to your final destination, and you get the benefits as a frequent flyer with American as well. So that's the huge difference between point-to-point O&D service without any interline connectivity. And when you have that kind of service, it's limited. Your reach of who is relevant to is very limited. So we need this in order to be relevant to the entire traveling public within this region. We need this global connectivity and a seamless way of doing that through what Southern has built. So that is the big difference. This is the way you get a smaller aircraft, you get into a focus city or a hub, and you connect seamlessly into where your final destination through Southern. Thanks, Mark. Back to you.
Great. All right, next slide. Again, as I said, when you're the only airline in town, you have to be reliable. As soon as the word gets around that, quote, you're always canceling or people have bad experiences, they tell their friends and you go into a downward spiral. And we have seen this in many of the communities that we have inherited from other commuter operators. The essential air service routes are a bid process. The government allocates certain amount, they allocate a certain amount of flights, a certain amount of seats. You bid on the community, and then the community reviews all the proposals. And I'm showing here 7 communities that we took over from other airlines over the past 5 years. The light green on the left would be 2017, and the pink on the right would be this year. Bradford, Du Bois, El Dorado, Harrison, Hot Springs, Imperial, California, Lancaster, PA, and Morgantown, left to right. And you'll see, despite COVID and despite the industry flatness, every single one of our communities has had a record year in 2022. And I attribute that directly to the lower left-hand box, which is our controllable completion, which I talked about earlier, 99.3%. And also on the right here, Chadron, Nebraska, we took over from another carrier last year, June 2021, 365 days without an operational cancellation. I will tell you that is an amazing statistic, and it's paying off in this small community, 25,000 people in the whole market, best load factor ever, almost 90% in this tiny little Western Nebraska community. So reliability and consistency is the key to success. And I have to attribute a lot of our success to our CEO, Stan Little, who is not an airline guy and basically is a frequent flyer. And all of the decisions that we make at this company are based on his experience, mostly negative experience with the big airlines. And we strive to be different and we strive to be better. And it's very gratifying after 9 years to see our success come to fruition. Next slide. All right, so just again, to give you a little more background on our company. We just had our annual meeting, so I had all this wonderful information fresh. Hybrid business model, including high-end point-to-point destinations like Maui and Nantucket. Recruitment, training, development, and retention of strong team members. We have had 0 turnover in the C-suite in the 9 years that I've been here. This is my 8th company. I can honestly say I've never worked with a company where the chemistry is so good and that the commitment to each other is so strong. We have very steady leadership. We also, during COVID, adopted a permanent disperse the sea levels because we fly in Hawaii, New England, California, Dallas, Denver, the Gulf. There's one of us in each region. I'm up here in New England, but one of my partners is down in Nashville. So when there are issues, it's easy for one of us to parachute into our communities. I spend about 15 days on the road visiting our communities. I try to attend as many airport commission meetings as I can. And if we go forward with this venture, I will be your C-level contact, available on a daily basis. Richard or Jeremiah or anyone who needs to get a hold of the company can get a hold of me as quickly as they can send a text. Because we're spreading our wings so wide now, we have moved beyond. We had the single aircraft Southwest model. We had all Cessna Caravans until last year. But because of contraction and consolidation in the industry, there literally are 50 opportunities that I'm looking at right now, including this one. And some of them are beyond the range of our Caravan. So we have inducted into our fleet the Pilatus PC-12, which is a faster pressurized aircraft, King Air Super 200, which we fly in the Rockies because of the terrain and the altitude. The Tecnam Traveler, which we're flying out in the Marianas Islands because those are long trips over water, requiring a twin engine. And we also have our first large Saab 340 flying in Hawaii because we were flying some of our Hawaiian routes with 20 frequencies a day. There was so much demand. We decided with fuel costing what it was, we would be better served with a larger 30-seat airframe there. But the core of our company is the Grand Caravan, and we have over 40 of them. They are all being refurbished. If you look at the photo on the left, the interiors are beautiful, leather seats, the power ports at every seat, all new liners. And on the lower right-hand corner, you'll see one of our planes getting a fresh coat of paint right there in Mena, Arkansas. So we're fueling the local economy there, painting our fleet. Customer service, I already touched on this, 24-hour call center, strong leadership across all of our time zones. We have a corporate sales program, very popular. The more you fly, the more you buy. You can start with an increment of $1,000 and get a discount, or you could buy $20,000 and get a big discount. We have about 200 corporate partners that participate in that program. And then we also have industry-leading community marketing programs that are based around relationship marketing, sponsorships, community events, and that kind of thing, which I would run there in Natchez if we go forward. So Jeremiah and I have been talking about this for a while, and Richard, and I think what we would look at doing, we want to try to do this in 2022 because of what's happening there with the arrival of the cruise company. We are being very conservative in terms of expansion right now, but we think the timing could be very good on this. And looking at the Memphis hub, Memphis is slowly climbing back. It was a major hub for Delta back in the day, and then Northwest, and then really contracted. And the folks there are trying to add more service. Actually, they just added new service from Boston to Memphis, which will make my life easier getting down into your region. And 30 nonstop destinations there. New Orleans, about 50 nonstop destinations. And best of all, about half of those are low-cost destinations. So we feel like if we flew north to Memphis and south to New Orleans, we would have both bi-directional hubs, which we like. We'd have network service, fairly decent network service at Memphis and at New Orleans, and you'd also have a plethora of low-cost options, which would probably be important for the cruise folks. One of my jobs, we have a specialized consulting firm we work with that does our schedules and fares, but my job basically is to work with them and with Jeremiah and Richard to figure out the optimal service pattern for your community, the best flight times, et cetera, and design schedules that meet the local needs. And finally, as Jeremiah said, we're not really undertaking any new market-based routes in this environment of, our pilot costs have increased almost 50% in the last year, fuel costs even more than that. In order to open up new cities, we will require a grant and a local minimum revenue guarantee. I think that this market could be profitable without subsidy, but whenever you start a new venture like this, even in the best case scenario, there's usually at least a 6-month ramping process to get the word out, get people on board, have them try the service, and then build it to where the lines between costs and revenue cross. So I would say, if we were to launch something like this in a October or November timeframe, I would hope that our goal could be to achieve profitability by the second quarter of 2023. I think that's a realistic goal. The other thing we'd like to do as we're inducting these other aircraft, if we started modestly with Memphis and New Orleans in a Caravan, we could look at a phase 2 that could include Dallas-Fort Worth, which is 325 miles, and or Houston, which is 265 miles. DFW being a terrific mid-continent hub for American Airlines, and Houston being a fantastic hub for United, and us having interlines at both of those hubs, I would think would be a logical phase 2 for HEZ. So that's my presentation. Next slide. I'm happy to take any questions and provide answers if I can. That's our spoke singer, Sonny McFly. who has been opening up all of our cities with his special brand of entertainment. So if we come to Natchez, we'll have a big party, and Sonny will sing for us.
Nice. Yeah.
There we go.
I have a question. Let me get some clarification on something. You're gonna be bringing airlines in. Are those gonna be? I need to make sure. Are those gonna be props or jets?
We fly all turboprop aircraft. All 5 of our aircraft types are turboprops.
Turboprop.
Baggage. See, most people who was flying like Frontier and Delta Airline, the price supposed to have been cheap, but once you get to Frontier and Delta Airlines, when you start dealing with the baggage fee and everything, that's where the problem begins.
Good point.
Well, that's where they make all their money. So most of the low-cost carriers make as much money on fees, or Jeremiah, help me, probably more money on ancillary revenue than they do on tickets.
Yeah, especially that segment of revenue is not even taxed right now. So that's it's been a huge revenue generator for the airlines.
That's not by accident. That's by design. And I think, I like to look. I've been in this industry before there were low-cost carriers, and the fact of the matter is, the industry is divided into 2 groups. The department stores are the Deltas, Uniteds, and Americans, and now kind of Southwest that can basically fly you everywhere, and do it with a lot of bells and whistles. And it's like a department store. Services better, costs are more. The ultra low cost carriers, the Frontiers, Allegiants, Avelos, the Breezes, they are the big box stores. In the same way people will drive, out of their way to go to a Walmart superstore. Spirit Airlines is a Walmart superstore, and Allegiant, goes to a lot of satellite airports, and people will drive 100 miles to go there to get the $39 fare to Myrtle Beach. The beauty of Southern is that we feed people to both. We, because we are independent, in some of my markets, we connect 50% of our customers to United and American, but we connect 35% to the low-cost carriers like Spirit and Southwest. And because we keep our fares low, because we keep our costs low with this 9-seat model, as Jeremiah said, ticket on us is probably cheaper than filling up your SUV to drive to Memphis or to Houston. So we can't control the other airlines' bag fees, but we can control ours. The other thing is the Caravan has very good cargo capacity. I mean, we regularly carry golfers, 8 golfers on our flight with 8 golf bags and their luggage, and we don't max out. So although the aircraft is small, it is very able to handle large bags for folks going to Orlando or Las Vegas or whatever. We never max out with bags.
I have one more question, my final question. I was listening to your presentation in reference to flying out of Nantucket Island. Most of those places that you was flying out are resort areas. So is this something new for the company, where it's about you to start flying? Natchez is a tourist town, but is this something new for the company that you're taking a venture on?
Well, we've a lot of the places we fly in Hawaii they're unsubsidized, and they are not high-end resorts. I mean, they are folks that need to get around. And I think the opportunity here is because you have that base of 300 PDUs, 300 daily travelers, some of whom are business people. And I just did this analysis for another city that a lot of their folks are driving to a distant hub. The cost of paying the mileage to those people or filling up the car has really changed the equation. And I think that the slide that Jeremiah showed of that other airport, we don't intend to gouge people. and we would price accordingly to be able to serve the market, or we will fail. It's as simple as that.
Good question.
Can you give us an indication of what the price of a ticket from Natchez to New Orleans or Memphis would be?
I will be able to at some point, but I can't today because part of that answer is going to grow out of whatever assistance package we have. I mean, just hypothetically, if our costs to operate these flights are $100,000 a month, just using, a ballpark number, and we have a minimum revenue guarantee of $60,000 a month, I then have to fill the gap with 40,000 of revenue. And we achieve that usually with 3 levels of fares, let's say 99, 129, 149, something like that. And then we also have to factor in the load factor. Are enough of those 300 people going to use this flight so that I can model a 7-passenger load factor, or is for the first few months we're only going to attract 4 people per flight, and therefore we would need a different level of fare. So I'm not trying to evade your question, sir, but the fares grow out of the overall economics modeling of the market. And that's something we would work together with Jeremiah and Richard to do based on the SCADSI grant, the other possible grant, and at that point also look at our costs. I mean, the way we started this year in January, our fuel and pilot costs were one thing. They're completely different now. So it's something that we are very aware that low fares are important, but we're also aware that we need to stay in business. And that is, it's challenging at the moment, and we have to be very careful.
Do you anticipate enough traffic between Natchez and Memphis to be profitable?
Yes. Yeah, because I think with 300 outbound travelers a day, and we have the inbound travelers with which this cruise line is only going to grow, we only have to capture a small percentage of them to be successful. That's one of the things that makes us different than a Frontier Airlines. If a Frontier Airlines was looking at your market and they were going to come in with a A321, they have 190 seats to sell. That's a very different challenge than 9 seats. So yes, I feel like given your existing volume and how high the leakage hill is, I mean, these drive to other airports, they're not easy drives. I feel very confident that there is sufficient traffic there for us to support the flights.
And it's about frequency too, right?
Or we wouldn't be having this conversation if we hadn't gotten past that preliminary hill. Sorry, Jeremiah.
Well, I was just going to say the frequency is important too, because, especially if we're moving corporate customers, we need 2 flights a day, 3 flights a day. So you end up with about 30 seats a day when it's all said and done, once you get to that full schedule. And it's about connecting to those banks, right? Multiple banks, you need to have the ability to get back. So the more options you have going into those hubs, the better, especially for corporate travelers. So it is about frequency with their operation as well.
Yeah, and I think, like we've done in many of our other markets, if you start off, like in looking at your market, I think we would base an aircraft there. And again, I'm talking out of school here because this is the ops team's call. But my recommendation to them, if we go forward, is to do an early morning departure to Memphis. I just was flying through Memphis a couple weeks ago. A lot of their destinations go at 7 in the morning. So we do something early out of Natchez so that your folks could hit that early bank of flights. So if they're going to Boston, if they're going to Reagan, if they're going to LaGuardia, if they're going northbound Philly, you hit that flight, go back to Natchez, then go to New Orleans with a mid-morning trip. That's where your Florida people, your Cancun people, your Caribbean people, they're going to take a midday flight. They don't want to be getting up at 3 in the morning to go to Disney. So you connect all those people at New Orleans, onto Southwest and onto the others. Then you come back again to Natchez. You do an afternoon trip to Memphis. You do it late enough so that it's a cleanup flight from Memphis back to Natchez. So if you just started with that and then put a second airplane in and filled in with more frequency, I think it's very, very doable and a very good service pattern to use Memphis as your main, morning and evening, quote, business type service, and focus your leisure travelers over New Orleans, where you got tons of cheap seats and tons of great destinations from there.
So I have a question. So if I understand correctly, you'd be able to have an airline agreement through Memphis, but would you clear TSA in Natchez? Would there be a TSA station here, or would you have to clear TSA once you got to Memphis or New Orleans?
No, another timely question. We just took over Jackson, Tennessee 6 weeks ago, and they did not have TSA. And we have worked with their United States senators and congressmen to bring TSA to the airport for the first time in 15 years. We were able to accomplish this in less than 2 months, but Richard would have to initiate this on behalf of the airport. With TSA, we would go to TSA and say, this is very important to Southern from a connectivity perspective. And then you guys would have to pull the political levers to get DOT and FAA and TSA to move. But our goal would be ultimately to have screening at your airport so that once people get to the big airports, they go directly to the gate. But right now you don't have TSA, so we would have to fly non-sterile, and folks would have to go through TSA at the big airports. But once we make a decision to do this, you can get the process going with TSA. And I mean, if we've been able to accomplish this in 2.5 months in Jackson, we'll hold that out as a standard that we expect for you folks as well.
We got some pretty good political connections here. I have to say we can get that done fairly quickly. But I know Richard's already had these conversations, and it just comes down to once you get the commitment from the airline, that's when the clock starts ticking and you can actually get TSA to make a move. But until that happens, it's we can set it up, tee it up, but the final timeline decision will have to come after the official announcement that the airline is going to be operating from Natchez.
Mark, this is Dan Gibson, Mayor of Natchez, and I'm here with President of the Board of Supervisors, Wes Middleton. And we just want to say on behalf of the city and the county that we are so excited. And we have a room full of people here who are also very excited. In fact, I would like to hear their excitement right now so that you can hear their excitement. That's your cue.
Oh, I wish I was there having a coffee with you guys, but next time for sure. Thank you. Jeremiah knows me well enough that I'm a straight shooter, and if I didn't think that this was worth Southern's time, we wouldn't be having this meeting. And I have a very good gut feeling about this, both from your destination. It's not Nantucket, but it fits very nicely into the kind of profile that we look for. I mean, you have the film business there. You have that quaint feeling. I think it's a place that we could merchandise as a real jewel, in our Gulf footprint. I think it fits perfectly into our brand in terms of our Southern roots. I mean, obviously, I'm Southern Italian, not Southern American, but I think it fits very, very well into our brand personality, and I feel good about it, Mayor.
Mark, this is Wes Middleton, President of the Board of Supervisors. I've always said if we could get people to Natchez, they always want to come back. So this is going to be very important to the future growth of Natchez and Adams County. I want to thank the city for their partnership in this. I want to thank Richard and Jeremiah for their leadership in getting this going. And Mark, I want to thank Southern for your interest in Natchez and Adams County, and look forward to working with you in the coming months to move this forward.
Absolutely.
Mark, I also have something exciting to share with you. One of the fun things about being here in Natchez and getting to play mayor every day. You know, the mayors in other parts of the state, I think, are a little jealous of me because I get to do things like yesterday, sitting down with the film crew, director and producer of a fantastic series called Great Escapes, The Great Escape. It's actually about to start filming here, their second season for the History Channel. Morgan Freeman is the narrator, and we are about to start filming 8 episodes. Filmed 8 episodes here last year. We talked about the airline, and Mark, they are so excited. You've got a lot of
Good.
Hollywood guys, our own studio here, Crooked Letter Pictures. They have been waiting for this. And so thank you for making that happen. Also, we have been back and forth with our cruise companies, and I have actually been texting with the CEO just now of American Cruise Lines, and they are excited to be able to work with you. And I want you to know one statistic that's just been shared that came out a few months ago, but we're making a big deal of it right now. A national study released by National Public Radio in December named Natchez the most affordable city in America. And we're about to market that heavily, and also market it as a great place to visit, but a great place to stay. And you are going to help us tremendously and your company. So it's great timing. It's a win-win, and we're here to help you and work with you in every way. And thanks again.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And like I said, I'm working to try to get down there sooner rather than later so we can keep the ball rolling on this. Because if we're targeting an October start, you know, we usually like to announce 45 days. We like to start selling 45 days before launch. And this summer is just slipping away. I can't believe Labor Day's just around the corner. So thank you both very much for your support. And I look forward to working with both the city and Adams County on this.
Thank you. Any last questions before we wrap it up? The board of supervisors, the aldermen, we're going to stay for more topics that we need to discuss. But I guess, yes, sir. Chef Ashley?
Morning, everyone. Everyone knows me as Chef. I'm new to the area, but I'm coming from the Caribbean and understanding, connecting, travel, and that type of stuff. Like say St. Thomas to St. Croix is 15 minutes, and a ticket could go anywhere from $180 to $220. So imagine that $99 to $149. That's a steal of a deal. To get from here to Memphis to connect, or even Houston, that's a steal of a deal. That's a remark I want to make as far as the cost coming to Natchez and connecting it with, you know, the film industry, the cruise lines. I'm a chef, so we do need travel to increase the culinary scene as well. Thanks.
Mark.
Yeah, and like I said, the more support we can gather from you guys during the launch period, the easier it's going to be for us to keep the lid on fares. But it's simple economics. We have to be. We don't expect to come into a market and make a killing. I will tell you, even Nantucket, this is our fourth year, and as well heeled as it is, we lost money our first year. So we're not expecting to turn the spigot on with the $100 bills the first day. But as long as we can operate close to break even through this winter and see profitability on the horizon, that would be our goal.
Right. One last question. Mark, can you share any timeline with us today?
Yeah, I think the next step from my perspective is to work with Richard and Jeremiah on the grant realities. I mean, what dollars are we looking at, and what timing and delivery of them, and what how can they be applied? I run a parallel track with my folks on schedule development and also the operational side of this in terms of pilots. I mean, again, I think this is the kind of place we base all of our pilots in our hometowns. So we would have probably 6 pilots, maybe 8 pilots living there. And I would think, given the low cost and the nature of the town, this is going to be a very popular place. Our pilots bid on where they go. While it sounds nice to fly in Maui, you don't want to be renting an apartment there if you're a 26-year-old pilot. Trust me. So I think next step would be work on the grant, work on the schedule, and then start trying to see a path to making this happen. We've got to also get with the cruise line folks to see what skin they are willing to put in the game. I would say, again, in terms of that pricing issue, if we can get the cruise lines to make the kind of commitment in terms of seats, if they say, okay, we have 150 seats a week, we'll take 40 of them and sell them as part of our cruise packages, good, I can check that box. That revenue piece is filled. I don't have to go to the businessman and hit him with a $50 higher fare because of that. So I think that getting with the cruise folks is going to be a very important step also to making this move along smoothly and cost effectively.
All right. Well, everyone, let's give Mark Sestari a hand. Jeremiah Gerald.
My pleasure.
Richard Nelson, John McCullough, our airport commissioners. Thank you. I think at this time, Mark, we're going to sign off with you, but we look forward to meeting you in person very soon.
Likewise, and thank you all for your time and your consideration. I'm looking forward to meeting you all and getting down there real soon. Have a good meeting, and thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of exciting things happening. We are going to take about a 5-minute break. You're welcome, of course, to sit in. Our meeting is public, but we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to ask a little realignment to get our supervisors and aldermen closer in, and then we will resume the meeting.
I have one question for it. Might be Richard.
Yes, Supervisor.
We will look forward to provide secure parking in the future, but that is a good marketing tool to get these seats filled by not having cost for parking. You go to New Orleans, Jackson, by the time you pay for your ticket and you find out how much you paid for parking, that's added cost that you're not going to have here. We will look at how we can arrange for that in the future. Also look at how this really benefits the airport in Adams County. Right now, we receive $150,000 in entitlements from the federal government every year. If this airline was to have 10,000 boardings, that turns into $1 million a year. So that $1 million puts in more hangars, more parking, more tenants, more everything. You start to grow. So this benefits us. So if we have to cut costs in order to make it happen, it's best for the airport.
I think this is a great idea for everybody involved, but I'm gonna ask one thing in your planning. When you're planning on this, include law enforcement on some aspect of it, because I don't know many airports that don't have law enforcement presence available, and I know there are grants out there that will fund the security side of things. So when that time comes, we're open. Bring us to the table. Sounds good.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? I think we're good, Mayor.
All right, we're going to get everyone's attention.
Hit 'em with that whistle.
We need, is Debbie Hudson still here? She could whistle for us. Somebody can whistle. Who is that? I want to know who that was.
That was Ricky.
Was that Supervisor Gray? Okay, hidden talents is all that athletic background. Y'all, let's see, we got to make sure all of our aldermen are here. Do you see any out there, Edmund? Tell them we're getting started. Yeah. Okay. All right. And we've got room down front here. Okay, and our first discussion item is going to be 911. I see Alderman Davis. Alderman Davis, if you'll work your way, I think we've got room for you up front here. And Alderman Dillard is out there. Okay. And Alderwoman Smith. Angie. It's like hurting. You know what I mean, don't you? Oh, goodness. All right. Scott, I'm not the only one who loves to talk. I mean, they're out there. I know. All right, here we go. All right, we've got the supervisors. There's Alderman Dillard. Okay, we're going to come back in. We've got our quorum. We're good to go. We have Alderwoman Irving here. Yeah, I think Sarah's coming back in. Okay, y'all. Before we move any further, I just want to thank the county for asking us to meet. We're so honored to be here together with you. Love working together. Obviously, a lot of good things are happening. We'll just follow the schedule, and we'll just kind of bounce back and forth here, keep it going. 911, Chief Daughtry is out of town, but we have Chief Arrington here to present a revised proposal on behalf of the city. All right, Chief Arrington. Good morning.
As the mayor stated, Chief Dawson could not be here for conflict. So, for the Board of Aldermen, he presented one a couple weeks ago at the board meeting. There was a change that needs to be made. This one is a little bit different than the one you saw before. The changes that were made, Chief Dawson did not include all 15 dispatchers that we were budgeted for, so we changed those numbers to include all 15 dispatchers that were originally budgeted. So you see what we have here.
Okay. I have two proposals that I did. I apologize. This came to me yesterday evening that I had to fix it. So I didn't know exactly the number that the dispatchers were making. So I did two proposals. I did one at $12 an hour, and I did another at $13 an hour. I knew the 13 was a raise for them, but I just did that because I knew it was somewhere close in there. So at the $12 an hour range, what we included was for the city, the format that we have now, the city pays for 10 dispatchers. The county pays for 5 dispatchers and 1 supervisor. So those prices are included. The number that you have includes their fringe benefits. Thanks to our city clerk, we did that number on the high side. We overestimated that number just to make sure that we would stay in budget. In our proposal, we have an equipment lease from Jackson Communication that would be consoles for all of the dispatchers. This is a 7-year lease that would be $50,000 per year. Every year that we have for the 7 years that we have those consoles. Now, these consoles are to be constantly updated. They're state of the art, and they whatever updates they need over those 7 years will be covered in these costs. And then we have a one-time expense to improve the Natchez PD building. There are some changes that need to be made according to Chief Daughtry. There's to have accreditation, it needs to be in a certain location in the building. So these costs are associated with that, moving some non-load bearing walls around to build dispatch their own kind of central location inside the building where they can achieve that accreditation. So our total budget for the first year is $700,000, $700,428. And then subsequent years after that, when you take away the $125,000 building equipment, is $575,428. That would be the annual budget. The cost sharing thing that we discussed initially was for the first year, the city would pay the $409,000. That is our 10 dispatchers, and then cost sharing, splitting the building improvements and the lease purchase, just splitting both of those things equally between the two entities. And subsequent years, it'll be $346,000. I did the same thing for the county, showing what you guys would be paying for the 5 dispatchers and 1 supervisor, and what it would be the first year and in subsequent years after that. I also, you'll see it at the bottom of the page, I did it with the dispatchers making $13 an hour, just like I said, because I didn't know the exact figure that they had. So I used that number as well.
Oh, great job, Chief Arrington. Very good job. Discussion, normally in our meetings, we would require a motion before we go into discussion, but this being a joint meeting, I think we just need to have some general discussion, see where we're headed, and then if motions are required, we'll make the motions. Is that good with you, President Middleton? Okay, so we'll just open up for discussion. This is, by the way, this is a special call meeting for both the board and both the city. So it's not a public hearing. So only the aldermen and supervisors will be recognized. Of course, the sheriff being a public official, and anyone else that and our E911 director. Yes. So we'll open up for discussion. Yes, Alderwoman Hall. And I know it's a little awkward, but we have to come to the microphone. What we can do, we can move the microphone around, Alderwoman, so you don't have to.
Thank you, Chief Arrington, and I also like to thank Chief Daughtry and the other members of the board for doing this study. I think this is a tremendous savings for all of us, and the dispatchers need an immediate space under the pressing conditions of which they are now housed and performing their duties. So I think this, excuse me? Oh, I thought he was saying. So I think this is a tremendous amount of work and an opportunity for all of us to get the services that we all need for the safety of this community.
Mr. President, if I may just say this comment too that needs to be said. Just a report from our board meeting last night. The city has already now passed a resolution to allow moving forward with the bond that will include funds to make these renovations. And we now have the legal authority to begin that process immediately. We have already gotten the estimate procured. Obviously, we'll have to follow some legal processes, But should we decide to go this route, we'll be able to immediately go forward with getting the final scope of work approved and then going through a bid process, because time is of essence to go ahead and get this work completed. Okay, further questions? Alderwoman Irving?
Okay, I just want to comment on the building. You have a one-time expense of $125,000. Is there a line item or list of things that we can see that it totals to that? Because we've seen things increase with as far as contracts, materials, cost is up now. So this is a permanent cost. It won't increase at all.
The actual estimation was at 100,000, and we put a 25% inflation factor in there just to be on the safe side.
Thank you.
And just to answer your question, that price includes the change in the building, the walls being moved, move them to the central location, as well as the IT technical things that need to be done as well. That was the price that was quoted to us at the time that we were doing this. And like the mayor said, we included that extra amount of money for, unforeseeables.
Alderman Frazier?
Yes. This is the cost of the building. Is this a new building, the old WIC building, or what?
No, sir. This proposal that we have here, that I have, is for moving dispatch back to the Natchez PD. So the building improvements would be inside the Natchez PD to eliminate some of the costs that would come with the new building.
Alderman Frazier?
I just want to say this. We're spending $100 and some $1,000. I just want the members of the Board of Supervisors, I want you to be aware that if you have any questions, y'all need to bring it forward and say what you got to say. I just don't want y'all to sit there and not say nothing, because this is what we are doing now. This is very important to the community and everybody else. I want y'all to be on board with this, not just sit there and don't say nothing. Now, I was a supervisor out there at that building out there with radio dispatch. Like, it gonna take a lot of money to improve the building itself. It's a lot of work need to be done. But if y'all satisfied with it, so be it. So I don't want nobody leaving out this room, anyone leaving out this room saying that, oh, they moved, the city moved on their own and we wasn't consulted. I wish that if you haven't been out there, go out there and look at that building and walk through the whole dispatch. Because like I say, it needs some improvement, because the way it was set up, it really wasn't designed in those days for to be dispatched. But if they're going to do renovation, you got to have separation, because there wasn't, when I was there, there wasn't any separation. All the dispatchers were sitting right there together, and you really couldn't hear and everything else. So this improvement is greatly gonna help. But my final word is make sure that everyone is on board.
Yeah, I guess with the numbers, Chief Arrington, did y'all include overtime, and what was the range? Is that the current salary that the supervisor is making now? Because our numbers are drastically different. We're actually spending some $670,000 with fringe and wages, but there is an amount of overtime that's included in that. So,
yeah, Mr. Slover, how many employees is your figure based on?
That's we need one less than y'all's program. That's 15. Currently, we actually have 14, but we're looking to hire to 15. So within that 15 range, we're showing with fringe $670,000. I think the current salary of the supervisor is some $47,000, give or take, and then you have some overtime that they incur. So with that included, that's. I was curious at that.
Alderwoman Smith.
Scott, what percentage is of that 400? Was it 600?
100,000 is overtime. I'm just curious because I don't think Megan said it's not included in this number that the city. So we definitely need to know 17,000 in overtime. And then how many employees? We did one less. And what's the average per employee?
We'll need the mic for Megan. We'll need
So
the mic.
32 is the average, it looks like, yeah. For 10.
I did not. All of this is including the fringe. So what we have here for the $12 an hour, the first proposal is dispatchers making $26,000 a year, and then the $13 proposal is dispatchers making a little over $28,000 a year.
So it's like a little over 80 in difference. Could that be the difference in? Our numbers aren't that far apart.
At $12 an hour, we were saying the average salary would be 26.2 with fringe. 32.2
So it's a
would
little
be
bit
the
lower.
average for the $12 an hour. And then let's see, for the $13 an hour with fringe, for the dispatchers, not the supervisor position, we are looking at around 34.7 for each of the dispatchers.
Okay, so I think we kind of see where there is a discrepancy there. I guess where I'm, it's fine.
The supervisor, we plugged at 35.
Girl, you got to put that back from eyes.
We plugged 35,000 for the salary before fringe. We plugged 35,000 for the salary for the supervisor before fringe. With fringe, it comes to about 42.4. So that's where some of the differences are going to be
there.
Mhm.
Okay, I guess
Yes, Alderman.
I want to hear from people. I see the upside of this because it saves on either the building costs or buying a building and all that. It does save on that. But I'd like to hear the downside. I think it would be good for all of us to know what negatives there are, if there are any. If you feel there are any, I know at one time there was some talk between departments about it being located in a county building, that there was a little bias that way. I think we worked through that, but I don't know that for sure. I guess, we're trying to make decisions, but we need to hear from the people that do it every day, that are involved with it more so than we are. That's where I would like to hear from.
Yes. And the sheriff.
I got a question. They say there's a savings. What are we saving from? What is the total price now versus this right here? And what are we saving?
Actually, Supervisor, technically, this is more for both the city and the county. At least it's more for the city than we're paying now. With the savings is as compared to the county's proposal that was delivered to us. The county had proposed to purchase a building, to renovate the building, provide security, move everything to a building out, on the north end of town. And we compared the cost of that proposal to the cost of this, and that's where we're getting the savings figures. Supervisor Hutchins.
So you're saying when Supervisor Gray asked about the savings, so that 125,000, that's the only savings it's going to cause besides it being more. But once the purchase of the building, it still would be a savings once another building is purchased. And am I correct? Then the price that was shown.
So if you look at the proposal that you have from the city in front of you, we compared those numbers to the county budget that was sent over to us, the county proposal, I'm sorry, that was sent over to us. The county proposal was for the first year was $1 million, a little bit more. That's including the building,
generator, some fencing, the moving of the stuff. Yeah, so that included several different things. What the city proposed is eliminating some of those things. It eliminates the fence, it eliminates the generator. We don't really have to move anything because we're buying new consoles and new things like that. So it eliminated some of those costs that were included in the county proposal.
It also eliminated the cost of a new building.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, for all those that do not know who I am, I'm the director of E911 and FAOs. I've worked at the police department for 16 and a half years. It's oldest, the sheriff department it do have its issues. So we go move over there somewhere down the line, probably about 5 years or so, maybe, if that long, we have to move again. Dispatch is not designed to be moved from one department to another. We keep moving from the police department to the sheriff department. By being combined, I feel like every combined dispatch center needs to have its own separate entity. I've talked to a couple combined dispatch centers, and they have a standalone building where they don't have their own separate building because it's conflict of interest. So me personally, I've talked to my people to see how they feel about it, and they voted that they did not want to go to the police department because we keep moving from one department to another.
Alderwoman Hall, and I'm sorry, Alderwoman Hall, the sheriff had his hand up and we overlooked it. The sheriff. Okay, Alderwoman Hall, the gentleman says the lady must speak.
Thanks, Sheriff Patton. Ms. Fales, we understand where you're coming from, but we're not going to move again. If you go back to the police department, this is where we want you all to be. You all have come to us. You come to the city, the county, stating you need an immediate place to do your jobs. We're providing that immediate space. There has to be a healthy environment. What you have been saying is not healthy. It's going to cost to build a building. There is a building now to provide the space for you to do your jobs. So we understand where you're coming from, but we have a space. There is a savings to what has been presented between the county and the city. So we want everything to go smooth, but if it's going to save us from building a new building, putting in all new equipment, there may still be some equipment that has to be provided. But this is where we are at this point today. We're providing a safe environment, a healthy environment for you and your employees. Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Alderwoman. Sheriff?
Let me just say this. There's been a lot of talking going on for a minute now about this dispatch situation. And, you know, I sit back and I look at City of Natchez. I sit and I look at how Adams County is moving. And everybody is investing in making sure a lot of other things are being taken care of in the City of Natchez and in Adams County. You know, when you look at your first responders, and I consider dispatch first responders as well, just like us, because if they don't get that information to us the right way, it can affect how we approach a situation and go in, and it can cause lives on both sides. So I look at how Natchez is growing and all the beautiful accolades we're getting. And then I look at what's being done or what's attempted to be done with dispatching. And it's a little bit disturbing for me. And the reason being is this: you don't need to be moving backwards. You need to be moving forwards. I don't want control of dispatch at all. And them ladies can tell you I've never come down there and gave them an order. And this is not about control. But what I'm thinking about is I'm looking at the city of Ridgeland. I'm looking at Copiah. I'm looking at the Tunicas. I'm looking at all the places that I went because the board has really supported me in going to these different places. And they're moving towards law complexes and technology to make their cities a smart city. So if you're gonna move where you can't, where you're enclosed by these walls and not in an independent space, that's gonna stop the city and the county from eventually moving to a real-time crime center, which is where we need to be going towards. I do feel like the dispatch should be an independent entity where nobody is is putting any unnecessary pressure on them, because they don't need any more pressure than they're getting when it comes to doing their jobs. I think that when we look at things as a city and a county, we need to look at it from a data-driven point of view. And the data won't lie. The data will help you understand what your real needs in the city and the county are, and they're going to help you understand on the grant level on how to get these things. Now, I've looked at these numbers because they were sent to me last weekend, and I called Scott and I told him I thought the numbers were off. And I think the other thing that everybody in this room should be remiss in is the fact that you got Ms. Fales over there, you got Robert Bradford sitting right back there. I don't know how much, and I can't speak for him. He's gonna have to speak for himself today. But he is the one who coordinated all this moving and stuff. And I'm looking at this list, and there's several things that are missing off this list that haven't been accounted for. And so I didn't want to say this to the end, but I'm saying it now. Let's look towards building to where we can continue to grow in the future, not moving backwards by shutting them down and putting them in a room. When you look at these smart cities and all these cameras, because you all getting Project Note everywhere, and I commend the county for doing the same in the county. But eventually that's going to have to connect to a real-time crime center. And if you don't have the places to grow to do that, you call yourself to be stagnated down the road. So if y'all don't mind, I'm going to ask Robert Bradford to come up here and get this mic and say some of the things that are missing off this list that haven't been accounted for so it can be truly addressed. Is that okay, Mayor?
Of course.
Is that okay,
Thank you.
Mr. President? Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Hello, Mr. Bradford. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Everybody know me. I think I met people back there. You don't know me. Rob Bradford, Brad Bradford, Adams County MA Director, also the 911 coordinator. When you talk about 911, when I first took this job, they had been fighting like 7 years to try to get it consolidated. I think we ran up against a guy, everybody know him, named Mayor Butch Brown. And he was a tough fellow to deal with. And I figured that out. I think Sarah was there, Dan was there, and I come over there and he just shoot it down. But when you're talking about consolidating 911, the reason we consolidated is because when I got here, they had two PSAPs. Those are primary answering points in a county with one municipality. Normally counties with 5 and 6 municipalities, they do separate. But when you got a county with one municipality, it's best to consolidate. The reason for that is all the calls have to come to one PSAP. And it was going to the police department. They had to transfer to the sheriff department with none of the information. So you're looking at 5 to 10, almost 20 seconds of a lifetime. They had to get the information. So I constructed a plan to bring all that together, put that up on one system. The reason for the one system is to put them in one location is for information sharing. We did a study back with that board. We looked at 3 places. We looked at the police department. We looked at the EOC downstairs. And we also looked at purchasing another building. The feasibility of it was we couldn't put it at the police department because what are our main threats here in Adams County? Tornadoes, right? So if a tornado would hit the police department, where would your 911 be? And we looked at that. We did that study because if they take the antenna down and hit that building, 911 is down. So they looked at putting it down in the EOC for a time being because it's a sturdy structure. It got its own generator and it's self-sustained away from all the other elements. That's the reason we did that. Also, we did it to save money because what was going on, you had 2 PSAPs. We was trying to split the individual money. We was giving like $40,000 to the sheriff department, $40,000 to the PD. But that wasn't enough because you had dispatchers making 2 different salaries doing the same job. So when we consolidated all those monies, we had stipulation from the city, and I know some of the aldermen here remember that we was not able to fire any of their dispatchers. So they had 10 dispatchers. So we had to bring those 10 over. Once we brought those 10 over, the county would pick up some of the bill, and the 911 board would pay for the rest of the stuff and also the raises that we was giving them. I think it was like $2,200, right, Scott? Yeah. So we did the raises on that. So once we did that, we came together, got one system, and then we went to the next problem, getting one radio system. We got all that done. Like the sheriff saying, we're going in the right spot. I looked at these numbers. There's a lot of things missing because when I found out the hard way when I first did it, it took me almost 8 months to even just get the process down. PSEPs have to be registered with the FCC. You got AT&T, those phone lines have to go to a DMARC. They have to go to a certain location. And it costs money to move those 4 positions to another spot because it worked out fine because we had 2 positions in one spot and 2 at the sheriff's office where the move was made easy because we only had to move those 2. We can take those 2 offline and still get calls. So what you're going to have to do is it's going to cost more money to try to move 4 positions to a new spot and trying to move all that equipment because you're looking at the average year we pay for those services is almost $90,000. So who's going to foot the bill when you move that equipment? Because once you get the equipment, you got to have the software to manage that. I learned that out. And you also have to have pre-authorization to get those things moved. So presenting a budget with a number on it is not a hard copy. You have to put a plan together first on how you're going to move those PSAPs, i.e. getting quotes and everything else. And once you get those quotes, you got to be ready to move because they change. And I tell people that. That's what cost us because we had to end up spending a little more money because we kind of hesitated. So I advise the mayor, aldermen, and supervisors, we need to dig deep in this, have a plan, have a scope of work before we do this. Because once you move and you cut those lines, those 911 calls got to go somewhere. Go ahead.
Yes, Alderwoman Hall.
There doesn't appear to be much logic to building an entire new building versus a building that's already in existence to move the dispatchers there. There's room in the police department. The chief has already shared that information. We're here to alleviate a dire situation within the dispatchers' quarters. And the numbers don't lie. We presented a savings and the majority, more than 80%, or 90, near 90% of the calls, 911 calls go through the police department.
Okay, you saying the chief he presented this, where's the plan at? How we're going to move this? Because this budget don't equates for that because keep in mind, even though you trying to move, those phone lines still have to be paid for. And also you got to make sure your building is equipped to handle all the new update. You got to have internet. Certain NCIC cannot be on the same internet as regular email. You got to have all that. You got to have plain old telephone lines. And I tell you, they are expensive to run. Right, but what I'm saying is you can't go in this blind. I did this before. Now, y'all can take it on deaf ears, but let the record show that I'm telling you, that's one thing. If I tell you a chicken dip snuff, you look up on the wing because he got snuff. That's how serious I am with this because it took us a while to try to get this put together where, the reason we didn't put it in the police department first because it wasn't suitable for it. If it was, we'd have put it there. See, y'all got to understand that if a tornado hit that spot, where is your secondary PSAP going to be? You got to have all that because the 9's going to continue to call.
Supervisor Gaines and then Supervisor Hutchins.
Well, I want to say that, first of all, the city and the county has been doing great things, and we have been moving forward together. But clearly on this right here, that we have some numbers that's not straight and some factors that's not straight. And my whole thing is this: we serve a public, and we in 911. When you call 911, you either need ambulance, you need fire, you need police, or you need sheriff. And it's no dollar in my book. There's no dollar on a human life. It's no dollar value on a human life. And I think that we all are professional adults. We don't all think the same, but it has been proven that we can work together and work these things out. And we are working them out actually. And when we work those out as leaders, we work them out for the constituents that we serve. So I'm not going to say how, but I can clearly see this, that there are some numbers and there are some factors not been added. I'm not here to keep it in the sheriff's department. I'm not saying don't put it in the police department, but what I am saying is to all of us as leaders that we need to kind of consider at everybody and put those factors together and make the decision to do the best thing for to serve these people that elected us.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Hutchins had her hand up.
Okay, I just want to answer
Yes,
a
Chief
quick
Aaron.
question. So, in that number, that $50,000 for 7 years, that is equipment to put a new consoles. The internet stuff is being done according to Edmund already. We're getting the internet services. The city already has analog phone lines that will be available. So I'm not saying, these things. I just don't want y'all to think that we didn't consider these things. The internet, we've considered. We are getting new top of the line fiber optic internet throughout the city. One of the main hubs is right outside the police department. We have the analog phone lines for backup. One of the things that we talked about with Jackson Com is that tower that you're talking about. We're not supposed to need that no more. Everything will be going through the fiber optic cables that are underground. So I don't want y'all to think that these things wasn't considered. We did talk to Jackson Com, and let me tell y'all, this is not my this ain't my wheelhouse. I'm just here on these conversations, and I'm reporting to you what I know. So those things have been considered, and there may be other factors that need to be considered. I fully agree with that. But this is just a proposal that we have put forward, considering all of those things to help alleviate the problem.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Supervisor Hutchins.
Okay. Thank you. Let me say this, and I agree with Supervisor Gaines and the sheriff, and also the E911 one person. Who knows this better than Mr. Bradford, than the E911 person who put this together? He started this a few years ago. He put this together when we decided to consolidate with the city and county. And if we want to do this right, and like you say, a price does not matter when it comes to a life, because it could be either one of our life, and we putting a dollar amount on this price. But we got to think about also these E911 people. I don't want it to be biased between the county or police department. I don't want no bias here. I just want it to work smoothly like it's been working. And these people, they need a place to go. I agree immediately. But what we need to do, we started a committee. We had one meeting with this E911 committee. I have not heard anything. We asked the chief of police and the sheriff to get together and get some numbers together and give us some figures. Okay, we all see right here that the figures are not matching up. They need to come back to the table. Before anything is done, let them get back at the table between the chief of police, E911, the attorneys, and the chief of police, and get together and get these figures ironed out. Because if you sit here and move forward with something that's not going to work, we are going to be back in the same position. So let's bring this back together and get some right figures here. You know.
Yes, Alderman Frazier.
Mr. Mayor, let me say this. This meeting is very fruitful and it's very important. The personnel department, we can work that out. We can work it out. Now, I'm gonna say this. I had concerns. I confronted the chief of police, being that I was, as I stated earlier, that I was the supervisor out there over dispatch, and I asked him questions. And my concern is when you start moving, there's gonna be cost of equipment moving. And I'm like, how much it's gonna cost us? We can move back to the police department, but my biggest concern is what's gonna come up next. Now, we had to deal with the CAD system. Well, everybody, like the warrants at the police department is in a different CAD. The warrants at the sheriff department is in a different part of this. Also, the fire department is on a different system. So all this got to be taken in consideration when you get ready to move. And I asked him about the tower. The chief politely stated to me, I said, do you use tower? As the fire chief just stated, say, no, we're going to fiber optical. So that is something, and I don't know, have we fiber optical all over the city or what, but when we start dealing with this, we got to think about the citizens that we serve and E911. Now, E911 most times used to go over the river, but we need to make sure that we are servicing the people in this area. Now, dispatch is very, very important. And this, like I say, we can't come in here and make a hasty decision on where they're gonna move at. And my thing of it is, I want this to be right for all the citizens in Adams County. The sheriff department, like I say, I'm not gonna say they y'all got some good ideas. Y'all right, like I say, y'all been on time. Also, the police department over here, the Aldermen, I know about it, but the rest of us, we're learning about it. But like I say, we're cost concerned about the money itself. But money shouldn't be the issue here. I don't care where we go. But if we need a new complex, buy a new complex. We need to stay there, we'll stay there. But money shouldn't be an issue here when you're dealing with the citizens of Adams County.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Smith, if you'll permit me just one minute, I just want to ask a couple of questions because there may be a little confusion and I may be a little confused. I'd like clarification on what is the building that is being proposed, Mr. Bradford, by the county? Which building is it? Where is it located? And also, what is the purchase price of that building? And then what is the renovation cost?
And is it tornado proof?
And is it tornado proof?
The whole intention when we first moved to 911 is viability, feasibility, and safety. So the EOC was the first one with the intentions of building a law enforcement complex with the sheriff, with a new EOC, and also E911 with sturdy structures that can be able to sustain hurricane force winds equipped to the same from not the whole building, but just that portion of it. And the reason for it is if all the entities are together, we can share resources. When you split these individuals, you got to make sure all your resources are being combined together. Moving into the police department, outdoor sirens, everybody love them. Your constituents love them, right? They have to operate on a certain radio frequency, and that's only down in my building. So when you move that, you eliminate that when you're trying to move. So that's why we need to sit down and look at how we can move this, even if we don't move it.
I just would like to get back to my question, though. It's my understanding that the proposal for the county involves an office building that is currently behind the McDonald's. It is priced at $225,000 or $275,000. I would like, because this proposal is all we can consider today. A law complex I'd love to see in the future, but we today are having to consider this proposal. That building, I understand, is behind McDonald's. It's the old WIC building. It is above ground, so it, like the police department, would be we just pray that tornadoes continue to go around us. But that building, what is the purchase price? $275,000. And then what is the renovation budget for that building to include the gate, security? I just would like to know that figure because I believe that is a large reason why the county's proposal is more than the city's proposal. I will say the city's proposal, just to reiterate, it includes $125,000 in renovation to the police department. It will be a top of the line facility once that's done. It includes all new equipment. It includes all state of the art, including the latest in fiber optics and the ability to communicate even without a tower. So it's very enticing to us that at a savings of over $300,000 in 1 year to our taxpayers, we can have a fine facility with all new equipment and a much better environment for our 911 operators. Definitely, we have two duties here. Number one is obviously to see to the safety of all of our citizens. And yes, safety comes first, but also as stewards of public funds, we have to make sure that we do that in the most affordable and appropriate way possible. And we believe that we do have a proposal here that accomplishes both. It keeps it unified, consolidated, providing that level of service that we've got to provide for the safety of our citizens, but it also provides it in a more affordable way than purchasing and renovating another building that that would cost in excess of $300,000 to $400,000 the first year. We can actually move it into the police department. Now, those are the facts that we have, and that's what we have to go on. Now, I totally agree, though, with Supervisor Hutchins and others who have spoken. Until we can be sure and everyone be in agreement, then, there is no way we can proceed, because it seems that there is confusion over the figures. I would love to see our chief, the sheriff, 911, our city clerk, along with Ms. King, your office, to compare all of these numbers, make sure we get to a number where the city and county can agree the numbers are there, and then we move forward. But I do want to make sure everyone knows, in addition to what we voted on last night, we are making millions of dollars in improvements to city buildings, including this building we are in. The day of just patch and go, that's a day gone by. The $125,000 that we will be spending on that police department will put those offices in tip-top shape with the best electronics and technology available.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Mr. President, you asked about the
Yes, Mr.
cost
Slover.
that they have for a new building. It was programmed for $135,000 for preparation of console. Generator was $74,200. Ethernet, this is an ongoing cost, $3,200. Gateway rental is $1,300. That's an ongoing cost. The gate was $24,288.71. Your debt service, which is ongoing, but that obviously is included, is $15,000 a year, and utilities are $30,000 a year. So that was about $263,000 of a one-time cost, and then the $15,000 debt service and Ethernet. That stuff's going to be ongoing.
I assume then your proposal proposes to carry a note on the purchase of the building.
That's right. We did not just pay cash for the building. We just programmed in a 20-year debt service.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes. Alderwoman Smith, Alderwoman Smith, I interrupted you.
No,
and
no,
then
Supervisor Gray. I've spoken, but I will come back after you. You go ahead.
Supervisor Gray?
All I wanted to just say is I do agree with Supervisor Hutchins. I do, because until all the sides get together with the numbers, there's going to be a he said, she said on the number thing. And we need more specific numbers to make, educated decisions, because that's the hard part of being on our positions, because we have to vote on this. But, I don't want it to be a vote that comes down to one side saying one thing and one side the other. So if we get back that committee going, I feel like, certainly, Mr. Bradford, you need to be on there, Director of E911, Police Chief, Fire Chief, all those the people that have the say in it, as well as city clerks, chancery clerk, financial sides of it, as well as at least one liaison from each board. And that way we're all on the same page at the same time, because we're making some progress here, because I think what we know now is we need to do more to make this decision educated.
Thank you. Supervisor Gray.
Let me just say this. I kind of agree with bringing everybody to the table, and because proper planning prevents poor performance, first of all. I just want to say this. When this all came about years ago, Katrina had hit. And the problem was, couldn't nobody communicate with nobody. So If I'm wrong, Brad, you correct me when I say something wrong. The ultimate goal was to put everything together where everybody could be on the same page. At one time, we was on the same page. But I'm gonna tell you one incident that scared me to death. I'm sitting up there at my place of business, and I had a Adams County law enforcement officer had stopped by. Less than 3 seconds, you had police cars going everywhere, about 5 of them. I said, what's going on? And the individual say, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? They on a different radio from what we on. The ultimate goal is to bring all of this together where all of us can get on the same page, where we can do what's best for the citizens of the community. Now, if the sheriff department gonna be on ESPN and the police department gonna be on the movie channel, we already messed up to me, because we got one county and one municipality. For to say we on different channels, something wrong with it.
Yes.
So we need to get this committee back together and come up with a plan that's gonna be a win-win for the police department, the sheriff department, and E911. That's my thing.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Gray. I think we're about ready to close the discussion and ask that committee to move forward.
Yeah, I just have
Yes.
one more comment. This is not about territory, and that's what I'm hearing in a lot of the comments. We don't want it at the police department. This is not about territory. This is about the safety, security of the dispatchers, the supervisor who works with the dispatcher, all of the first responders, the citizens of this municipality, and the citizens of the county. We're here to do what's best for them. And yes, we do have a fiscal responsibility. Every elected official is charged with being fiscally responsible to do what's right in the most affordable, safe, and secure way. And I think we are working together, but this is not about territory.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderwoman.
Mayor, I'm gonna go ahead and close out.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand it's not about territory. Keep in mind, you got to have a thorough plan. Planning is the key. If you don't have a plan, I'm telling you, all fall apart. And like I said, you can't permit the small piece because it's gonna hurt you in the long run. 911 funds are not enough now to fund our total 911 system. So that money got to come from somewhere. Even though, because keep in mind, we're trying to fight with legislature up there. They have all that money trying to figure out what to do with it. Our fees are steady getting shorter and shorter. So when you move that, you're gonna have to accumulate some fees that you never had before once you do that. And I've been in that office 8 years. Am I more important than the 911 dispatchers? I'm in the same building. Are they more important to me? No, because we all county employees. I go down there every day. I got a job to do. I can't go tell the supervisor, well, I'm not going to open the EOC because it's down there got mold and we got a tornado ground. That ain't what we do. So when we do this, when we get this committee, if we stick with it and do a great job, we can have a great 911 system, because we got to go forward. You know, like Supervisor Gray was saying, when we came together, all together, we agreed to have one radio that everybody can talk to, because that's the whole intent of, you only have one municipality. And you see what happened in Jackson when those guys chase, they can't talk to each other. And there's a problem. We had to address the elephant in the room. It is what it is. And like I say, we just need to sit down and really address it before we start putting these figures in. Let's have a plan, because when everybody comes to the table, you're gonna find out some stuff is missing that, man, we need to do that. So I agree with you, Mayor. Let's come, we give a timeline, let's work on this, as soon as possible.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
all I
sir.
have.
Supervisor Wilson.
Okay. Everybody, I'm sure most everybody here has been down to where the 911 is right currently. It is absolutely horrible. Okay. The proposal the city has is kind of a short-term fix. I feel like that sooner or later we are going to have some kind of law enforcement complex built in that, but it is 5 or 6 years away, Sheriff. We we've talked about this for a long time. We've all tried. We want to get sheriff's office out of there too. But for the short term, this might be the fix, in my opinion, to get 911 in a suitable place for the time being. He just said that they're going to bring all new computers in, but it's a 7-year deal. That means they'll be obsolete in 7 years. So all that stuff's going to get changed again in 7 years. So I feel like we probably ought to move it to the police department. I think the numbers might be skewed a little bit. They need to be worked on some, and that's what the committee ought to be working on. But that's just my feelings.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you. Well, I want to just say thank you. Sheriff, you had something to add?
Let me clear this up for the paper and everybody. When I said law enforcement complex, I was talking about a vision for the future.
Yes.
When it comes to this E911, we can keep that right there where it's at. Bottom line is, I've heard Supervisor Gaines and Supervisor Hutchins and a lot of other people speaking here, and we have to change our way of thinking. I'm one who definitely wants to be a good steward of the taxpayers' dollars, but I also see what everybody in that building from the top all the way down goes through when it comes to dealing with some of the issues that they deal with. And I understand the territorial thing, Ms. Hall. I don't want it in the sheriff's office or the police department. And that's why I'm being clear on that. But I'm just saying, if you're going to make an investment that you can build on. That's smart money where you don't have to keep re-spending the same thing over and over and over again. So I just want to be clear. It doesn't matter which building is in for me. They need to be their own entity. And if you go and you see some of these other communities and you see the way 911 is set up, they are set up where they'll never have to move again. So why keep adding these additional move-on fees just because it's 7 years down the road or whatsoever? Do it right the first time. When y'all were talking about this bridge over here and putting the lights on it, everybody was super excited about that $1 million. And here we are talking about what, $200 and something thousand, and we crying about that for the people we talk about, we care about every day. That's a problem for me. My people tell you, I'm the first one to tell you, I don't have a problem with people coming to me all day long, but you come from my people, I have an issue. And I know you all love your people. These dispatchers are your people. So make the investment on the front end. Do it right the first time where you won't have to keep coming back doing it over and over again. That's all I want to say, and I'm done.
Thank you, Sheriff. Chief Arrington, thank you for all of your work. Y'all, we are going to be here all day. I'm afraid we are on a timeline. We really are. I believe we are at a place now where we're ready to move forward with the committee. I am so sorry, but I really believe we have exhausted this topic enough for today. I'm seeing nods of improvement. We have several other items we have to discuss. And so what I would suggest is we have a committee and we will recommend the representatives from the city, and y'all recommend the ones from the county. You'll have our recommendations by end of today, and we hope that a meeting can be held just as soon as possible. Is that agreeable, Mr. President? Is that agreeable? We'll have our list, and I will email it to you by end of today. And then if y'all can then coordinate with your list, and we'll move forward with the committee meetings. And then we'll come back. I thank everyone for it. I'm sorry, but if we allow the discussion to continue, we'll never reach all of our things. I'd be happy. It will 2 minutes, 1 minute. And this will be the last thing, but we do have to have a point where we move forward. With all due respect, I'm so sorry, Deputy.
I was just going to say, I've been here 40 years at the sheriff's office. Billy Joe, we go way back. And when we moved dispatch in 2015 and we consolidated, that was the best thing ever happened to Adams County. My thing is, you got to take the politics out of it. It needs to be a separate building. Like right now, they don't pay internet. The sheriff's office pays their internet bill. They don't pay for phone bills. I pay the phone bill at the sheriff's office. So their consoles, the county paid for all that. We paid for all of that. The city didn't help anything on that. And I just think the politics needs to come out of it. And that's why I say it cannot be put back in the same bill.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. We'll have our committee list for you, Mr. President, a little later today, and look forward to that committee working. The bottom line, though, Chief Arrington, thank you for your presentation. And the bottom line definitely is we want to move quickly to something that is better, a better environment for our staff at E911, and also continues to find service to our citizens. The next item is fire protection. And I want to start this where this is on the agenda. We wanted to discuss next year, a year from now, we'll be looking at a renewal happening of the interlocal agreement between the city and the county as regards to fire services. I'm just happy to report I had a good talk this morning with former Fire Chief Ventress Green, who served the city of Natchez for a number of years. And Chief Green has volunteered his services to the city to be a representative working with Chief Arrington and also with our city attorney and also the chairman of our fire committee, Alderman Ben Davis, in helping us as far as the city goes and moving forward with this process. And we're hopeful that the county can put together a similar arrangement and we can move forward. Chief Arrington, I'm going to recognize you for more discussion on this.
Okay, so right now the current agreement is that the county pays a set amount per year, and then any calls over a certain percentage, over 25% inside in the county, there's a penalty. What that totals up to be with the penalty is about $644,000 a year. In my estimation, with the prices of everything going up, and the volume of calls that we go to in the county, which last year, 45% of our calls were in the county. This year, as of June 30th, we're at 46% of our calls are in the county. So in my estimation, we need to revisit the amount that the county is paying for these services to go in the county. Yeah, we all have the same issue. I have the same manpower issues that everyone has, and covering 600 plus miles of Adams County is taxing. I mean, it just is what it is. It's taxing, and this price has been the same for way before I got here. So I think at this point we need to revisit and rethink our agreement.
Did you check the actual receipts and distributions? I think that number.
We need a microphone for you,
So
Mr. Slover.
according to the agreement, there is a
It's a CPI.
There's $625,000 per year is what you pay, and then there's a 3% penalty for everything over 25%. So if you get over 25% of the calls in the county and maintain that, there's a 3% penalty. So that is the number that I use to come up with that.
I thought there was a CPI increase. Yeah. Yeah.
So where are we at right now?
I didn't
Megan?
pull it up to be sure. I was hoping that we could, last time this happened, the most productive thing that we were able to do was do what I guess what the mayor's maybe suggesting is getting somebody not currently working for the city and county, more objective, have them there and then get together with kind of like committees and work out a fair and reasonable solution. So I think that before we get into who's spending what, where, or when, yeah, this is showing us we're at $701,603. There's an increase each year. But I think that would be the best way to kind of approach it and look at improving fire for everybody and also having, a fair deal for everybody too. So I think everybody would like to have some improvements to fire, not in any way criticizing our fire department at all.
Supervisor Gray.
Mayor, to keep us from being here, I know we got a long agenda.
Yes, sir.
To keep us from being here, because my stomach growls.
Yes, mine too.
I served as, my committee was the fire department for 2 years, 2 terms.
Yes, sir.
And the easy way to do this is don't get us a committee from the city and the county, and then come back with whatever we need to come back with. And we ain't gotta be up in here talking about nothing. We just get a committee and just come back with whatever we need to come back and move forward.
All right. All right. Alderman Dillard. Thank you, Supervisor. Alderman Dillard.
Thank you. I agree with Supervisor Gray. But I think, at least what I think I hear with Attorney Slover, is we have to have somebody that is qualified and experienced in these matters, other than just people who want to make things better. We all want to make things better, but they have to bring something to the table. And I think the conditions where we did last time, they were kind of put in with the intentions that both parties would be able to make progress in good faith in a direction to improve the fire protection. I mean, the little 3% penalty doesn't amount to hardly, that much when you actually look at it. When we look at the total cost of what fire protection is for the county of Adams, because that's what we're talking about. We're the only little municipality provides fire protection for the entire county. And my number was closer to, something like that in that many square miles. And, we're at $2.7 million. So the number of people that have now moved outside the city, I believe, is actually larger than those that live inside the city. So you got a greater population, and people live in houses, and that's property values, and it has to be fire protected. So the demand has increased. And even if we use the 3% qualifying penalties to try to make that adjustment, it falls short of meeting the demand or meeting the cost of what that demand is generating. So anyhow, I'm just saying we're going to have somebody, either maybe from the Mississippi Fire Academy or somebody, try to find somebody that has that. Well, right. And, but you got to be careful with the consultants and experts. You hire one that'll agree with what you're paying him for, and I can hire one to agree for what I'm paying him for. So we have to be, wise about those things. But I think yes. And so I'm glad to hear that. And I agree with Alderman Gray, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Dillard. I tell you what, I will just commit to this. We will, just as we have said with the 911 issue, we'll have our committee list to President Middleton by the end of the day, and that committee then can meet with the representatives chosen by the county and move forward. Just as Alderman Supervisor President Gray, you've had a lot of titles, but Supervisor Gray, thank you for the. Okay. Morgantown, I'm ready to get this done. Alderman Davis, Supervisor Gray, Supervisor Gaines, it's time to get Morgantown Road done. I know we've had some discussion on it. I think it would be good for us, Mr. Slover, if you could present to us just what the overall plan is, the money, and the way the percentages break out. I think we've had some misunderstandings that this was a 4 or 5 or 35-mile project. We need to make sure everyone understands the scope of the project and the percentages.
Yes. So I talked, Alderman Smith has the pleasure of living next to me. So I talked to her about it after one of their meetings, and there were some questions about the actual road mileage. And that's not a number I came up with. It would be not reliable at all if I had to do any type of mathematics. We asked the engineer to calculate the percentage of the project that was within the city. And that the figure he gave was I think it's 43% or something along those lines. That's what he came up with. I just forwarded it to the mayor's office. I think Alderman Smith and Justin
wrote it and maybe think it might be a little bit different. Maybe the road splits in half and all that. So the number is what it is. We can come to terms as to what that is. Our engineer's not present here, so I can't get him to explain how he came up with those numbers, but certainly that was where that figure came from. It came from, I asked the engineer, he gave a calculation.
The
If it's
overall
wrong,
mileage of the project is how many miles? All total.
the project is only 0.934 miles, so it's not
0.934.
it's not the entire Morgantown Road by any stretch. It goes from the edge. It just about cuts into CVS property. It actually does cut into CVS property. There is a long drainage portion of the project that goes behind Cook's Lawn and Tire, and that ends up being a pretty substantial part of the project and probably a pretty substantial expense of it.
Right.
And it goes to Red Loop Road is where it cuts off. And so it's going to make the project where it is. It's an old road that was built off of an old railroad, so it's too narrow and it's drainage ditches and so forth. So it's going to replace those drainage ditches for curbs and gutters. The major aspect about it is going to address that poor drainage that's on that road. And as I like to say, it's not Morgantown Road when it rains, it's Morgantown River. So we want to get that corrected, and that's where the figure comes from and all that. But certainly open correspondence about that. I don't think I think the board asked for that question to the engineer. He gave it to us, and I forwarded it to you. We have been in discussions with the Department of Transportation. That's where the earmark is going. We had just about the best, meeting that we've had when it comes to Morgantown Road when we had it with MDOT. And, it looks like that we can be able to tackle this issue by other funding sources as well as the earmark. I asked him, your traditional earmarks have got to be an 80-20 split. So I said, well, it's going to be way north of 20%. And he said, well, what we can do is divide it into a phase or a project, two different projects. We can have the 80-20 project for our earmark. And then the other phase, we can go after some other funds. And one of those funds that I brought up that I've been thinking about in my mind since I heard about it was storm water drainage. I think that is really the most crucial part of Morgantown Road anyway, is the stormwater drainage is so poor, it's so dangerous. So, and it just so happened that the guy at MDOT that was telling us, and he was very encouraging. He said, well, yeah, he's actually over that grant too, and thought that there's a real good possibility for that. It's not an 80-20 match, it's a 1-to-1 match, but that if we can address it in two different phases and get it as to a 1-to-1 situation. And again, he encouraged us, and I think it makes sense for us to do it. Both the city and the county with our grant capabilities and so forth, that to make it into an ILA, to do it together and hopefully help the city with their great grant writing, not any disparaging our own, but having that might be very, very helpful for the project.
So I tell you what, I'm going back to my time when I used to be a preacher, and we had a committee for everything. But we've got to have a committee for this. I want to just say we've actually made a lot of progress behind the scenes. And what Mr. Slover just shared that I find very exciting is that we actually have other grants possibly now available for this. And also we could strategically shuffle some ARP funds. Mr. Callaway, you're not where I can see you. He's shaking his head. I know. This is what I want to lead up to, though. The lieutenant governor cornered me about a month ago at the MML meeting, right after Natchez received the public safety award. By the way, I just had to get that in. The lieutenant governor said, Dan, remember, we will go dollar for dollar on your storm and drainage projects. A dollar for dollar match. So I think there's some great strategies here. I will also say, and I just want everyone to know, we did proceed last night with a major street bond, a $6 million bond, not to be confused with the TV show. And I know the county is doing a bond. And so the funds are going to be there from various different sources. the funds are going to be there. I would like to propose that our Public Works Director, Justin Dollar, our Special Projects Manager, James Johnston, and others on behalf of the city meet with the committee of county on this, along with our alderman whose ward this is in and your supervisors. And let's quickly come up with the actual numbers, the math that works, and we then can talk real numbers with the city and the county and come to an agreement. But definitely Justin Dollar and also Robbie Dollar and the engineers. So, and I'll have that list to you by end of the day.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderman
What is
Frazier.
We are going to from the pharmacies all the way out to Red Loop Road on that project.
From the very edge of the CDS, it actually didn't go past. It's just a small space right through their driveway.
What is what is the total? What is the total of that project?
0.9.
0.9. And what's the city part we got to put up? Now, that's what I got issues with too.
So what we're proposing was that the local funds, right, they're going to be a one-to-one match is what we hope. We'll have a one-to-one match. What we're proposing is that there's an 80-20 match. So it would be 44% of the 20, right? And then, I'm sorry, 40% of the 80 of that 20. And then we would propose the 60%. And then for the one-to-one match, it would be, 40% of that 50-50. So it's whatever the local funding requirements, what we're just saying.
I want the dollars to dollars.
Well, I think I sent a proposal of some $690,000. And that may not even be accurate.
I think the actual number is going to end up being less once we consider our grant possibilities and some of these strategic funding possibilities. And that's why I've suggested a committee to look into all of that and really get to the bottom line numbers.
Well, like I say, I don't want this, we paying an excessive amount. We only have only so much going to the city limit. The city limit stop out there at Hubert's apartment, and everything on the right-hand side is in the city. Everything on the left-hand side is in the county.
Alderman Frazier, what that's based on is it's not based on mileage, it's based on scope of work and where the scope of work is being done.
I understand about
But this is why
that.
we got to have a committee where we have an engineer there, because
I understand about that.
This room, so.
I understand about that. But like I say, that's basically my concern.
Supervisor,
No, I just want to make a comment. When you look at Google Maps, it shows you where the county have the left side from the right of way to the house. The city got the street all the way up to Oakland. The city got Morgantown Road. The street belongs to the city.
I'm familiar with that, Rick. I'm
All the way to
a retired police. I know what's on the left side.
No, this is what I'm saying. I'm going to show you right here.
I ain't got to see it. I already know about all that.
Okay, the only thing I'm saying is this. The easiest way to do it is the project started off with like 1.2, then it went from 1.2 to 3.2. Now it's over $4 million because of the inflation. The project is 0.9 miles. The city have 0.4 of the 0.9. We got 0.5. Y'all got 0.4.
Now listen to this. I'll just ask you a question. The thing I just was inquiring about it was, the price. But here's the thing. I am totally for getting this done now. I'm not against it, but whatever needs to be done, we're gonna get that done. But that's the only question I just had. So ain't no problem.
Thank you, Alderman. Y'all, we're about to bring this to a conclusion with just one more comment. Alderwoman Hall.
I just wanted to say we're on the verge of a historic efforts between the city and county, because that road was built after World War II, and nothing has been done to it except blacktop of a gravel or dirt road.
Thank you, Alderwoman Hall. Well, we're excited. I'll have a list of our committee, to you, President Middleton, by the end of the day. The next item is the swimming pool. The swimming pool. And I think this discussion can actually be pretty fast because I would like to just report on our meeting last night. The Board of Aldermen made 2 motions last night pertaining to the swimming pool. And one of those motions really just takes care of the issue because while it's been in the ordinances going back and you can see prohibitions against alcohol being served at public areas in the public pool, just to reiterate the city's position, the city actually passed a new ordinance last night that will be a citywide prohibition of alcohol being served at any pool, any public pool within the city limits. Now, hotels, private homes, obviously, we have no say over that, but this will affect any public pool or public pool property surrounding the pool. The city pool being the city county pool at Liberty Park being a public pool within the city limits, it will fall under that ordinance. And so it already is illegal according to old ordinances, but this just reinforces that. The second, it was enforced already. It's already the ordinance. This just reinforces it. So we can't sit by and watch the law broken at the city pool. Our police officers have already been instructed to shut down any event there and to ticket anyone who is in violation of city ordinance by consuming alcohol at the public pool. That is the ordinance. It supersedes all else. That is the ordinance. So there is no more discussion on alcohol at the pool. The ordinance supersedes everything. The second thing that the board voted on last night was a motion to just simply notify the city's 3 commission appointees of the fact that the city ordinances do not allow consumption of alcohol at a public pool, and to continue supporting that would be in violation of city ordinance. And if they do so, then they will need to resign their commissions because they will be breaking city ordinance by voting on such matters. It is my understanding one commissioner has already tendered their resignation. I'm waiting to see, and we won't talk about that publicly until we get it in writing. So the alcohol, there's no more discussion. It's against the law. And so, and anyone who has a party out there, I warn you, we're going to shut your party down. We're going to arrest you. We're going to arrest everybody, do the tickets, whatever the law allows. And I'm trying to make this not as serious as it has been because we've been here a long time. I don't mean to be flippant about the situation. I do want to underscore this. All of the experts tell us, and any former lifeguard will tell you, that saving someone is one thing, but saving someone who is intoxicated is another. And that situation can result in the death by drowning, not only of the individual, but also of the lifeguard. And the city is not willing to take on that kind of risk at the jeopardy of the lives of our citizens and those who work at the pool. But also we aren't willing to take on that liability risk as it affects our insurance and what could happen to our insurance premiums. And I would think the county believes the same. So with that said, it's against the law. We are on record today discussing it. I don't want to discuss alcohol any further. There is one item I would like for us to discuss today with regard to the swimming pool, and that is that the commission was supposed to have delivered to the city and county a budget according to the agreement on July 1st. We have not seen a budget. We need to see a budget. Also, it is our understanding under the agreement that hiring setting of salaries, there are still ultimate decisions that have to be made by the city and the county, because these are, city dollars, county dollars. So we'd like to have that. We would like to see a budget as soon as possible. We also would like to have some response of where we are on the city's request for an audit to take place. And Alderwoman Irving, you have your hand up. We'll entertain discussion now to see if there's anything further that needs to be discussed. And I would, Mr. Slover, like to have just some response regarding our request for an audit, if there's any response to that. Yes, Alderwoman?
Yes, Mayor, I want to ask, has all three parties abandoned the interlocal agreement? The county, the school board, and the city? Have all three parties abandoned?
Yes,
Have they
that was
formally-
done over a year ago, to my knowledge.
Mr. Attorney, have they formally abandoned the interlocal agreement? Because that contract is still
Mr. Callaway,
in
if you
effect.
could-
And
if you could speak to Alderwoman Irving's question.
Just for clarification, we've entered into a new ILA that just allows direct commission to control or maintain the swimming pool and the soccer fields. I have a copy of it. I'll hand it to you after the meeting.
so everyone, the school board has abandoned the city. And I'm asking because I don't know of any information. I mean, it was going back and forth. Nothing was ever just totally voted
Alderwoman
on.
Hall.
The fourth interlocal agreement was agreed upon between the county and the city of Natchez, September 23rd, 2021. It is certified. It is in the Attorney General's office. It is between the city and the county, the pool and the soccer fields only.
It
And-
is also in our minutes. And also, we did meet with the school board in person some time ago, and they agreed that they did not wish to continue in any kind of commitment, financial or otherwise, or sharing of liability for the pool operations. And so that interlocal agreement was made null and void. And just read the minutes of the city board minutes from those months in well, you could look in September of 2021. In fact, you were there when we voted on it. I do remember that.
And I'm not saying, what
Yes.
I'm saying is that I didn't get any, we were going back and forth, Mayor. There were changes constantly being made between the county and the
Yeah.
city. And I didn't hear of anything final
Oh,
with the interlocal agreement.
You can look in our minutes. The city voted on it. The county voted on it. The city approved 3 appointees. The county, I believe, just let their 3 appointees move over that had been on the old commission to serve on the new commission. And that's where we are.
And
So,
we've also-
yes, I mean, that's all in the minutes. We have a new agreement. Alderwoman Hall?
We've also asked that the remnants of the Natchez Adams School District lettering be taken off that building, as well as the YMCA, which is still on that building as well.
Okay. Alderman Dillard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I didn't yell into it. With the county, guys, we need to I think we're going to have to revisit this. I think we've made some accomplishment. Mr. Mayor made it clear the city's position and our ordinances. But I think we're going to have to, it may be a small committee, and Mr. Slover, you would be a part of it. But I want to just, at least my opinion out there, the idea of taking something of this sort of administrative skill and operational understanding and just getting some well-minded, good-intentioned people and leaving that with them to say, hey, you guys put together a budget here and the operational, and you guys tell me how it's going to work. I think it's a lot to ask these people. I don't know that they're all pool people or they've ran a pool. Some of them come from the financial background. Some come from sports backgrounds. And then to say, hey, you 3 guys, you guys go figure all this out and then come back and tell us what we need to do. I think that's too much to ask. I really
I
think
agree.
that we need to look at this and whether or not even a commission system is really working, because the experience that we've had so far, 2 commissions really haven't really worked out the way that we thought. The first one didn't. And I even took the time to go back and look at some newspaper articles where they were having problems even making a quorum, which kind of led into the YMCA's not being able to renew their contracts. So I think going forward, guys, it's going to have to be short order. Now, this swimming season, probably when the kids go back to school, it ought to drop off significantly. Would you think? They shouldn't be hanging out at the pool. But I just want the supervisors to, at least acknowledging that we're going to have to do something other than just leaving this with commissioners, because I think that's wishful thinking, that this problem that has been here for a while, we can just pick somebody or have them volunteer and they go, oh yeah, I'll help out, realizing that now they've got to go and, buy a calculator and get more reading glasses and stay up late at night and try to figure out how to make these ends meet.
I will
Thank you,
say
Mr. Mayor.
this. I will say this. One thing that is working more and more in the city, other governments, I think definitely the county has seen this with example with our airport. The reason we had such a successful meeting this morning is because the county has a very qualified, highly skilled director at the airport. Now, I know the pool isn't the airport, but I think the principle could be the same. And that is that perhaps we look at hiring a very highly qualified director of the pool. The city and the county split the cost of that. And rather than having volunteers with little experience running things, we have an experienced director running things with the small staff needed. And I think it would take a lot of the politics and a lot of this out of the picture. I would really like to see us move toward that idea. Alderwoman Smith.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
then
Mayor.
I see you, Mr. Ware, but our public officials take precedence. Alderwoman Smith.
Thank you. I do agree with a lot of what you all both said. And I feel like we need a committee. I mean, we need people that want to volunteer for the pool. I think maybe a committee and not put these financial pressures, auditing pressures, because that is in the contract. I mean, their audits are required. It's not even a request from the city. It's what's in there. So I think that is putting pressure on them. And I know, Mr. Ware, you're there every day. Everybody talks. Well,
I'm sorry. We're going to need the microphone.
okay.
Are you
I'll give it to
relinquishing?
him.
Okay.
Well, the other thing I just wanted to say, I do, the one that resigned, and I just don't feel like there was a lot of things they didn't understand what they were getting into, and maybe that I do think that's the fault of the city and the county. Maybe we're not clear. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But their expertise and what they have in soccer and swimming and what they want to do out there is great. So I don't want to lose these people that care and love the pool and the soccer program. So that being said, maybe we can set it up differently.
The model that I just referred to was the airport. We have a director who is paid on salary and has volunteer commissioners that help guide, but those commissioners don't have to prepare the budget. The paid director does that. And I think, and yes. So, Mr. Ware, you're recognized.
Well, I'm listening to the alderman there, but we had Silas and Simmons on board. When we came up with a budget, they helped us sit down and permitted the budget. At the time, we was told that the city was just going to sit to the side. So what we did was presented our budget to the county, because the county was going to pay the bills and then bill the city half, and the city was just going to sit to the side. And when you talk about the interlocal agreement, right now, we have the county and the school board still cutting the grass. The city still has not stepped up. We have pool covers that's sitting on the side of the pool that the city has actually supposed to been installed last August through the city. The city has not installed them. When you talk about the budget, we came and we did everything we could. When we went back, and I don't know what the city ordinance was on pools, public pools, but when this commission was put together, it was the city, the county, and the school board, and they each had 3 members.
We sat down and went through every rule at the pool with the YMCA. We adopted the rules with any necessary changes for Natchez. The county didn't set the rules or the city. Now, when it came down to the alcohol, that was set about a couple years ago. Now, we had 2 parties last year. We had no problems. We haven't had any this year. When the thing came out in the paper, the Democrat.
We don't even need to discuss it. That's against the law in Natchez, Mr. Ware. Let's not discuss illegalities and illegal activities.
When was this illegal? Maybe that was.
It's been on the ordinances for many, many years, and Mr. Callaway can show it to you. And we did not know, and we're glad and we're thankful. Actually, we're thankful to the Natchez Democrat for
So
bringing
far,
it
it's
to our
only been
attention.
there's only one person that that almost drowned at the pool, and they scaled the fence and jumped it. Half an hour I was there to save her, and that was about 40 degrees.
Yes.
And you know, the city actually gave me an award for doing it,
Yes,
and the school
thank you.
board. So it's
Thank
not
you.
about alcohol or somebody trying to drown this.
I'm sorry, alcohol is illegal. We're not going to discuss that anymore. It's illegal. We're just not going to discuss it. Mr. Ware, thank you for all of your input. I do want to say that ever since I've been mayor, I have noticed a very combative attitude, and I don't like it. I haven't liked it. We're all working together, and yes, sir, I'm talking to you. And I think that your combative attitude is a big part of this problem. And I'm just saying it because every meeting we've had from day one, I've noticed it, and I don't like it. We're here to work together, and I want us all to work together. Thank you. Do we have anything else to say, Ms. King?
Sales tax returns to the state of Mississippi, and I don't have a sales tax number, nor can I find anyone who has the booklet so that I can file it. Is there anybody that can help me?
That's the first I've heard about this. Is there anyone with sales tax information
The
on the
sales tax
poll?
booklet, huh? I don't know who have it because the letter that I received it said Natchez Recreation. So it has to be filed. We're delinquent,
Okay.
but I don't have a sales tax
All the more
number.
reason we really need a full-time skilled director who can oversee this operation for the city and the county. All the more reason. Thank you, Ms. King. We'll reach out and see what we can do on our end. As far as the pool cover, it was our understanding that was being installed. It was brought to our attention last night, and we will look at it. We will certainly look at that. Yes. And we would appreciate that budget being shared with us. If the budget is there, has been shared with the county, we'd like for it shared with us also. Have y'all received a budget as of July 1? Okay. We need to see that budget because these are city funds, county funds. These are taxpayer dollars. It's important that every dime be accounted for. And we have not been receiving monthly financial reports
And
either.
just as an FYI, when we did the ILA extension back in September, that was a joint effort to adopt that particular budget with that particular ILA, but we hadn't been revised for the year, and
Okay, thank you.
But there was the original one was approved.
So we have not seen the budget. We don't know about the sales taxes. Various things are being implemented there without the city or county's approval. So we have an issue. We do. We have an issue. I would really like to see us move quickly to a model very much like the airport, our port, other city operations. I think the commissioners are a great asset, but I think we need a full-time skilled director. It's too important. Let's see if we can work together toward that. And sounds like another committee. All right. I thank everyone for your comments today and for the discussion. It's been very good. Sometimes it's not always the most pleasant things because we do have our challenges, but one thing that we can do is work together as a team. We are at the point now where I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn, and then President Middleton, you'll do the same. Alderman Davis has made the motion, seconded by Alderwoman Smith. Anyone opposed to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. The city's meeting is adjourned.
County, can I get a motion to recess, please? Motion by Supervisor Gaines, can I get a second? Second by Supervisor Hutchins. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you so much.